Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Luffy Fanfics, back with the amazing fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Luffy Fought with Celestial Dragon to Save Foosha Village. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Oi, wake up. Luffy groans as something nudges his back. With a tired glance up he realizes it's Marco. Time to get up, Yoi. We've arrived at the Moby Dick, the pineapple head says, then walks away to prep the boat for docking. After a minute of inner deliberation, Luffy assumes the Moby Dick is their ship's name. A slight prick of excitement runs through his veins. Ace is right there. The teen shifts his head to look at the ship, and his eyes widen into saucers. The Moby Dick is huge. No, that word doesn't even cut it. Luffy thinks he can fit all of Foosha Village on the deck. Wanting to get a better look, he pushes himself up in a sitting position. Luffy's stomach does a roll and he immediately clutches it. The pain spikes and he scrunches his face up, hoping it will stop. What's happening? There's a scratch in his throat and Luffy suddenly starts having a coughing fit. He presses a hand to his mouth in an attempt to muffle the noise, but a few strangled wheezes still escape. Are you okay? Luffy snaps his eyes up to Thatch, who is looking at him curiously. Luffy just nods, his hand still at his mouth. I'm fine, he mumbles. Thatch stares at him for a bit then walks away. We'll get the nurse to look at you when we get on the ship, he says over his shoulder. Luffy doesn't answer, but when Thatch is gone he removes his hand from his mouth. No way. He examines his hand. Luffy thinks he must have put his hand in red paint because that blood didn't come from his mouth, did it? With a grimace, he wipes it off on his cloak and doesn't think twice about it. They finally reach the ship, and Luffy has to crane his head back to see the top. That's amazing, he says in pure awe. Luffy immediately changes his mind. He can't fit Foosha Village on there. He can fit that plus the entire world. When he gets his own ship, Luffy wants it to be as big as this one. Also with cool gadgets. A laser maybe. Hearing the comment, Marco smirks knowingly then knocks on the side of the ship. Bring it down, he yells. At first nothing happens, but then a rope ladder drops from the deck down to their ship. Luffy moves to stand up but a blast of nausea forces him to delay. He holds onto the railing for balance and hopes his legs will stay straight. Thatch and Aizu don't wait too long before they climb up at master speed. Luffy watches them go and realizes another problem. How am I going to climb that with one arm? Are you coming, Yoi? Luffy jumps at Marco's voice. He forgot he's still here. You can go first. I'll be right behind you, he says nervously, finally letting go of the railing. It's drenched in sweat. Marco doesn't seem to notice though. I can't do that, Yoi. You're technically a prisoner so I can't leave you alone. Luffy curses to himself and walks to the ladder. He grabs the rope, tugs on it experimentally, then looks up. That climb suddenly seems a lot longer than he originally thought. He gulps in nervousness when he hears Marco's impatient toe tapping. Is there something wrong, Yoi? He asks, raising an eyebrow. Luffy scrambles his brain for an excuse. If they find out about his arm, they'll tell Ace, and he doesn't want Ace to worry about him. But he doesn't know what to do. It doesn't look like there is any other way to get on the ship except for the ladder. Think Luffy, think. I injured my arms and I can't climb with them. Perfect. Luffy sticks out his bandage-covered arm and flaunts it so Marco can definitely see the evidence. You didn't have much trouble with them when you were destroying our flag, Yoi. Damn it, just believe his story. I can handle a simple thing like throwing a rock, but my arms can't take lifting my own body weight, Luffy says innocently, shrugging his shoulders. He hopes his bad lying skills have improved at least a little bit. Based off of his crossed arms and blank expression, Marco looks like he doesn't believe any of it. But to Luffy's surprise, Marco smiles at him, although it doesn't look super friendly. No problem, Yoi, I'll take you up another way. Another way, Luffy repeats confusedly. Marco snorts. Well yeah, did you think I was going to carry you up on my back or something? Yes, Luffy honestly did. Then how are we going to get up? Marco smirks then suddenly spreads his arms out. Luffy has to wipe his eyes again and again because he thinks he's definitely gone insane now. There are blue flames coming off of Marco's body in waves. They envelop his arms and body like a silk robe. Gradually they grow and swallow him whole into a fiery cocoon. Luffy can't help but gape when he shifts and grows into a huge bird thing. Marco screeches loudly in bird tongue and flaps his wings to show off their flames. The Straw Hat teen clenches his fist and bobs it up and down excitedly. Amazing, he yells in awe, stars surrounding his head. After Marco is finished with his little show, he settles himself on the ground and extends an inviting wing. You want me to get on? Luffy guesses. The bird Marco nods and Luffy slowly reaches out to it. To his surprise, the flames don't hurt in the least bit. They are actually quite cool and soothing on his skin. Luffy cards his hand through the soft flaming feathers and chuckles at the funny texture. Marco makes a noise that sounds suspiciously like a purr, but he chokes it down last minute and caws harshly at Luffy to get on. The boy delicately sits on Marco's back and clings onto his neck with his arm. He wraps his legs to the sides of the bird and hopes his leg strength can keep him stable. With Luffy finally on, Marco stretches his neck then spreads his wings wide. After a couple of flaps, they're hovering above the boat. Luffy grips Marco tighter as they levitate higher and higher. Then suddenly, Marco's wings give a single powerful flap and they shoot forward. Whoa! Luffy screams in amazement. Marco flaps his wings and they circle above the Moby Dick, providing an A-class view of the deck. Without warning, Marco swoops downward. Luffy buries his head in the bird's neck and feels his stomach toss and turn as they plummet. Marco screeches a bird call. He slowly guides his body horizontally until they are gliding smoothly across the ship. Once they are in the center of the deck, Marco flaps his wings to bring them to a stop. That was, Luffy mumbles, his hood falling back on his face from when it was blown off. Marco gently nudges Luffy off of his back. The teen wobbles a moment while Marco transforms back to his human form. Awesome, he finishes. Marco's face is neutral and his lips are tight, as if he is trying to hold in a laugh. It's my devil fruit yoi. I ate a mythical zone type and now I can transform into a phoenix. So cool. The pair have caught the attention of everyone on deck by now. Most are confused that this flamboyant and short person is the one who has been wrecking their flags. The remainder of the crew are pulling out their weapons. So you're the one who's been causing a ruckus, says a burly man with fuzzy black hair. Luffy doesn't even hear him. He's looking around the deck distractedly. Commander, why don't you let the 7th Division take care of this little problem? Another one says, unsheathing his blade. Several members growl in agreement. No, let the 9th Division take care of him. The 7th Division has been on way more missions than any of us. Give our division a chance to prove ourselves. Then from the other side of the deck cheer in unison. Members of the 7th Division growl at them. No way. Let the 11th Division deal with him. 5th Division. We're the best. Commander Marco is our leader, so let 1st Division do it. The whole crew is arguing amongst each other, deciding who will have the honor of bringing down their enemy. Marco observes all the idiots around him, his lazy eyes annoyed. The noise is getting atrocious. He glances to Luffy, wondering how he's taking it. But the guy doesn't even look like he notices a thing. His head is swerving around the crowd and he's on his tiptoes looking for something. Marco raises an eyebrow. Luffy is definitely not as cruel as he had made him out to be. Actually, he's nothing like Marco had anticipated, but he can't forget the chaos Luffy caused. No matter what the guy's personality is, he still put their islands in danger. They had to stop too many unallied pirates who were trying to raid them. There were a lot of close calls, and they almost lost a few crew members. The only part that confuses Marco is that this is all to see Ace. Or is it? He just said he wants to see Ace, but is this really all for him? What is Luffy's relation to him? Oi. Marco focuses back to the object of his thoughts. Yes, yoi. Make it quick. I've got to bring you to Pops so he can decide what to do with you. Where's Ace? He asks bluntly. He's on a mission right now, yoi, but we called him and he'll be back in a few hours. Luffy physically deflates. So until then, you're coming to meet Pops. Marco beckons the now quiet Luffy along and they push past the arguing crew. Across the deck sits a large chair on top of a small staircase. On the throne is none other than Whitebeard. His expression is neutral, and he regards Luffy with a small frown. IVs and different medical tubes are attached to his arms and under his nose, giving him the impression of a weak old man. But everyone knows better. He's not called the strongest man in the world for nothing. The crew has stopped arguing at this point and have crowded around Whitebeard, Luffy, and Marco. Their once loud shouts have reduced to anxious murmurs. Surrounding the captain are the different commanders, including Thatch and Aizu. Marco walks up to his captain with a compliant Luffy trudging beside him. Marco, Whitebeard booms, his voice shaking every corner of the deck. Is this the brat who's been destroying our flags? Most of the crew look over to see Luffy's reaction to Whitebeard's obviously intimidating stature. But to their surprise, he looks calm, standing straight with no indication of emotion under his hood. Yes, yoi. His name's Luffy and he says he has an important message for Ace. Marco responds. And what is this message, Luffy? Whitebeard asks, a serious expression on his features. Everyone turns to the teen, expecting an answer. But Luffy doesn't say anything and gives no indication that he heard them. If you're going so far as to provoke us, there must be an urgency to this message. Am I right? Whitebeard presses. Luffy remains quiet again and Marco frowns. Oi, my captain is talking to you, he says with a nudge, irritation bubbling up. Luffy keeps his silence for a little longer then finally speaks. I'm not going to say anything until Ace is here, he says stubbornly. Whitebeard raises a giant eyebrow and leans forward in his seat. We're his crew. You can trust us with whatever information you need to tell him, he says calmly, trying to persuade Luffy to talk. There's a pause, and everyone thinks Luffy is about to comply. Instead, he stomps his foot and turns his head away. No, so childish. The entire crew thinks in unison, falling back comically on the deck. First the rope ladder and now this. You're being pretty demanding for someone who's supposed to be a prisoner, yoy. Marco points out, a frown forming on his lips. Luffy ignores him and stomps over to a railing. He plops on the deck with an audible thump, officially starting his silent rebellion. The crew look curiously at Luffy and break out into mutters over his odd behavior. Whitebeard watches him for a moment, then settles back into his seat. Everyone get back to your duties and no one disturb the brat. Marco, Thatch, and Aizu remain here. The crew breaks up reluctantly, shooting the occasional glare at the huddled Luffy. Do you all know why he is behaving this way? Whitebeard asks the commanders. Marco rubs his aching head. No, yoy. In fact, he was quite talkative when we first met him. It's just when I told him Ace wasn't here, he shut up and won't say a word until he comes. So he says, whatever he has to say to Ace must be quite important to him. Whitebeard trails off and takes the time to analyze the boy. From what he sees, Luffy isn't in the best of health. His gangly and pale legs are pulled up to his chest. Whitebeard can only see one arm, but the amount of bandages on it suggests no light injury. He seems young, the captain says. The commanders briefly glance over at Luffy. I thought so too, yoy. Marco says. He can guess that easily from the kid's stature and voice. Hey guys, you don't think that's him, do you? I mean, it's a long shot, but they resemble each other in some ways. Thatch says quietly, making sure Luffy can't hear him. I don't know, their mannerisms are completely different, says Aizu, catching on. Whitebeard settles further into his chair. The friction makes a squeaking sound against the wood. Who is this you're talking about? He asks. A seldom look passes through each of their faces. Before we caught Luffy, we met a slave boy in the city, yoy. Slave boy? Marco nods in confirmation. A slave trader tried to take him, and we went to go help him out. Although he didn't need it, he escaped pretty easily. Thatch admits. But he was so thin and sick, we didn't want him to be left on his own. So we tried to convince him to come on board. Marco pauses. The waves crash against the Moby Dick and a seagull caws somewhere. His eyes were terrifying, yoy. He said he would never trust us or anyone for as long as he lived. Whitebeard says nothing, just listens to the story with a grim expression. He was really angry too, not just at us, but at the world. If he really was a slave, I honestly don't blame him, Aizu says, brushing a hair out of his face. But do we really think Luffy is the boy from the market? Thatch asks his friends. He seemed to dislike us a lot back then. Whitebeard lightly taps his giant staff on the ground. It's not loud, but it's enough to grab all of their attention. No matter who he is, he still deserves punishment for destroying our flags. But since he is so adamant on waiting for Ace, I will hold off on any decisions until the brat can speak for himself. The commanders all nod, but do not dismiss their original suspicions. Thatch, can you get the brat something to eat? He probably hasn't had a good meal in a while. Also, when you're done, send a nurse to check up on our guest. Thatch nods and skitters to the kitchen. You two can go back to your duties. I'll keep a good eye on the brat. Hesitantly, Marco and Aizu leave the captain to his devices. The crew carries on as usual, but they always keep a wary eye on their prisoner. The breeze is cool as it drifts over the deck. It ruffles Luffy's cloak and he struggles to keep it from flying away. Once the wind passes, he curls into a tighter ball, trying to get some warmth. Why am I so cold? Luffy wonders angrily, just as another set of chills hits him. It's 30 degrees with no clouds. Trying to get under the warm sun, Luffy lifts his hood slightly. Instead of having the warming effect that it should, his mild headache turns into a full-on migraine. He immediately retreats back into his cloak and holds in a moan of pain. Luffy brings a hand to his forehead only to yank it back. To his surprise, it's drenched in sweat. But I'm freezing. Luffy doesn't understand what's happening, so he sets on distracting himself. Keeping his head semi-down, he traces lines in the deck with his eyes. Maybe I should ask for a blanket, he wonders to himself. Then he shakes his head. No, I'm not talking to them. They lied about Ace being here. He pouts and resumes tracing the deck. Luffy doesn't know how long it has been, but his eyes start falling shut. For some reason his energy keeps decreasing, leaving him struggling to keep his eyes open. I can't fall asleep, I have to wait for Ace. He slaps his cheek and forces his brain to be alert. Easy there, Luffy, don't want to hurt yourself. A pair of feet appear in his line of sight and Luffy looks up to a smiling Thatch, who is holding a plate of rather delicious-looking food. Saliva pools around Luffy's mouth. Unknown to Luffy, Thatch is peering at his hood trying to see the face hidden underneath. You must be hungry, so I brought some food for you, he says, smiling a little too wide. Luffy ignores the oddness of Ace's crewmate and sniffs the delicious aroma. Or should be delicious aroma. Instead, sickness bubbles up in his stomach and Luffy has to hold in a gag. He honestly doesn't think he can stomach the meal. He hasn't eaten in forever. The kebab is now a distant memory. Now he thinks if he takes one bite he will puke it all up. With Luffy distracted, Thatch leans closer, trying to peer under his cloak. But when Luffy reaches a hand up, Thatch snaps back and whistles an innocent tune. Luffy selects a single bun off the plate and nibbles on it slowly. Thatch quirks a brow. Surely you can't just be hungry for that measly thing, he protests. Luffy feels bad for not eating the extravagant dish. It goes against his eat everything philosophy. I'm not that hungry. I'm sorry for wasting food, he says quietly. Thatch's eyes go wide, and Luffy doesn't know if it is because he didn't take the food, or that he actually spoke. Don't worry about it, Thatch assures him, smiling lightly. Someone else will definitely eat it. Luffy sighs in relief. Sorry again. It's fine. Just let me know if you change your mind, Thatch says, walking back to the galley. The Straw Hat teen watches him leave, then sinks further back against the railing and goes back to pecking away at his snack. Line here. Thatch closes the door to the galley behind him, then leans up against the cool metal with a frustrated huff. I thought you were going to bring Luffy that food, Yoi. Thatch turns his head over to see Aizu, Marco, and several other crew members sitting at the bar in front of the kitchen. They're all quiet and have their gazes locked on Thatch. I did bring it to him, he says with a sigh, leaning off the door and walking behind the bar. But he said he wasn't hungry and only grabbed a bun. Thatch sets the plate in front of him. So does anyone else want it instead? Vista, the 5th Division commander, raises his hand. I'll eat it. Your meals are so good I can't let any of them go to waste, the man says, his large mustache twitching in amusement. Thatch smiles and slides the plate over to him. You should have made him eat it all. He's been making too many demands to the pirates he's trying to provoke, Aizu says with a scowl. He taps his coiffed fingernails over the wooden bar rhythmically. That just seems like his personality. He might be the slave kid and still have a grudge against us. Besides, he says he did this all for Ace, Thatch replies, grabbing a cloth and wiping the counter. Aizu stops tapping. Well, I'm not treating him different than the enemy. By the way, did you see under his hood? He asks. No, Thatch sighs. He kept his head hidden the entire time. We're probably just being paranoid, Yoi. We left the slave kid on bad terms, Marco says, frowning. Honesty. What's stopping us from ripping the hood off of his head and taking a look for ourselves? Aizu huffs. Because Yoi, if Luffy is the slave kid, the last thing we want is for him to have the same reaction as before, on a ship, where he'll be trapped, and have nowhere to run. Yeah, Aizu waves a dismissive hand. But I feel like we're putting too much thought into this. Their personalities are polar opposites. Just leave the guy alone, like Pops said, until Ace gets back. I for one am treating him like an enemy. He sees the troubled faces of his comrades and sighs. Look, we'll go back for the slave kid after this whole ordeal is settled. Okay. I decided to go anyway, Yoi. Like it or not, he's joining our crew. Although it may take a little convincing, Marco says, swirling a finger on the rim of his water glass. Hey, if we got Ace to join once upon a time, then this shouldn't be that hard. Thatch chuckles. All of them smile at the memory. Ace was definitely quite the handful, but some will argue that he's still trouble. Oh right, Thatch exclaims, smacking a fist in his palm. I have to get a nurse to check Luffy out. I wonder how he hurt his arms. Marco ponders aloud. He was coughing a little bit back there too. Wonder if he came down with something. Thatch slides from the back of the counter and jogs to the door. Get Anna, Aizu shouts after him. She isn't too gentle. Line here. Luffy is roused from his daze when he hears the tapping of high heels on the wooden deck. Damn it, I almost fell asleep before Ace got here. He reprimands himself. Arriving at his feet are Thatch and a tall blonde lady with a small case in her hand. Luffy, Thatch asks, leaning forward. Luffy raises his head and the two pirates know he is listening. This is Anna, our ship's head nurse. She's going to look you over. Luffy frowns under his hood. He can't let her see his injuries, or she'll tell Ace and he'll think Luffy's weak. Do I have to look after this guy? I mean, he deserves any injury he's got. Anna snorts, assessing Luffy with a harsh glare. Yes, on Pop's orders, Thatch says, nudging her. It's just a checkup. Anna grunts in annoyance and crouches down to Luffy's eye level. Yo, can you tell me if there's something wrong with you? Luffy remains silent, staring at her through his hood. Ooh, Thatch rubs the back of his head sheepishly. He refuses to talk to anyone on board. Guess I should have warned you. Seriously, she says, eyes narrowing dangerously. Thatch nods and slowly backs away, definitely not to escape the potential rage of his beloved Nakama. Never. Well, I guess I'll leave it to you. Bye. He runs to the galley before anyone can even blink. Luffy remains the same, keeping his arm tucked under his stomach stubbornly. Anna stares mutely at Luffy, waiting for him to say something. When he doesn't, she leans forward. Time to make him talk. I know there's something wrong with you. Pops wouldn't have me check on you for nothing, especially an enemy. Luffy keeps his lips sealed. He won't tell her his head hurts, or that his arm feels like it's being scrubbed off with sandpaper, or that he's about to puke just from a little piece of bread. Luffy's not going to tell her anything. Not even Ace. Look, her sudden change in tone has Luffy's eyes widening. There are flags on these islands for a reason. And do you know what that is? When Luffy doesn't respond, she jabs a finger to his chest. Protection. One of those islands you visited has my little cousin on it. When you destroyed the flag it left them, including her, vulnerable to pirate attacks. We were lucky to get there just in time before something bad happened. Anna leans in until she is right in front of his face. So I don't like how you're going around, thinking you can do whatever you want without consequences both on this ship and off of it. You're a prisoner, so you're going to listen to our rules, got it? Anna glares at Luffy, panting lightly. She didn't mean to rant to him, but the fact that her little cousin had come so close to death because of this man has her temper flaring. Well, she says expectantly, getting angrier by Luffy's silence. To her shock, Luffy bows deeply from his sitting position. I'm sorry. He apologizes meaningfully, ignoring the dizzy spell brought on by the movement. He hadn't realized until now how much danger he was putting those islands in. Luffy had only thought of his island alone and discarded worry about any others. I feel bad, and I'm sorry I put your family in danger. Anna blinks, not expecting the profound apology. Certainly not from a child, she notes from the higher voice. Catching herself staring, she waves her hands. It's all right. You don't have to bow. Luffy raises his head up. As long as you regret your actions, I accept your apology. Unfortunately, that won't be enough for the rest of the crew. I didn't think so. Luffy trails off, looking at the ground dejectedly. He doesn't want Ace's Nakama to hate him. Anna stares at him intently for a moment. You really want to make it up to this crew, don't you? She asks. Luffy just nods his head, trying to muffle a cough. I just don't see why. You destroyed our flags with the intent of damaging our crew, and now you want to be friends with us. That's because Luffy slaps his hand over his mouth. I forgot. I'm not going to talk until Ace gets here, he shouts, voice muffled by his hand. With that, he brings his knees back up and tucks his arm behind them, now silent. Anna can barely contain a roll of her eyes. Come on, kid. I don't want to deal with your games. She waits for a response, but he has sealed his lips together. Fine, she says bitterly, but with more softness than last time. I'll look you over myself. She moves to grab his arm, but Luffy stubbornly pulls away. A vein throbs on Anna's forehead. No way are you going to do that. Luffy just watches her warily from under his hood. I'm going to find out what's wrong with you, one way or another. She goes for Luffy's wrist, and he flinches away. But at the last second, she grabs his hood and moves it back slightly. Luffy's migraine throbs and he desperately yanks it down again. But not without Anna seeing his face. He's younger than I thought, she thinks in astonishment, watching Luffy fumble with his hood. And cute too, like a teddy bear or something. Luffy, on the other hand, is trying to push away the deep ache and nausea. He crushes his eyes shut and grits his teeth in pain. Do you not like the light? Anna asks, oblivious to the boy's issue. Yeah, Luffy grits out. Little by little the migraine becomes manageable, and Luffy can focus back on the nurse. Anna nods and opens up the small kit at her side. She shifts a few objects around until she selects a roll of bandage. I see your arm is wrapped. Is the injury severe? She asks, trying to look him in the eye. Luffy ducks his head a little. And no, it isn't. He lies. His hand is badly burnt from throwing flaming rocks. Anna raises a disbelieving brow. Oh really? She asks, slowly tugging away at the bandage around his fingertips. Luffy snatches his hand back and sticks it between his thighs. That's right. He says a little too fast. But I hurt my leg a while ago, and it doesn't feel so great. And it's true. The wolf bite on his calf is wide and scabbing over. That wound is the least of his troubles, but Luffy hopes it's enough to keep her away. Anna shifts her squatting position to where she is right in front of Luffy's shins. She holds his leg with great care and extends it slowly, exposing the entire limb. You didn't do a great job bandaging it, she scolds. Anna peels the bandages off until the entire wound is exposed. My, this is something. Taking a moment, she steals a cloth from her kit and immediately sets to dabbing off the dried blood. Luffy watches her with curious eyes. With the tender way she works, Anna kind of reminds him of Makino. Well, a kind of tough Makino. A stitch of pain hits his heart, but then he remembers he's just a step away from bringing her and the entire village back. All done, she says, finishing off her treatment. Luffy looks down at his leg and rolls it around experimentally. The bandage is secure, and it's not too tight. Thank you, he says, grinning widely. Anna swears she can see the gleam of his teeth under his hood. You're welcome, she says, eyes a lot kinder than before. Are there any more injuries I should know about? Anna eyes his bandaged arm. Luffy shakes his head. I'm okay now. Then he abruptly shuts his mouth again. Stop talking, stupid self. Anna notices his silence with a heavy sigh. He's not going to talk again, is he? She thinks exasperatedly. Well, the bandages on your arm don't look too shabby, so I guess I'll leave them. Luffy mentally raises a fist victoriously. I would check your other arm, as I assume it is in the same condition as your right. If only you knew, Luffy says mentally. However, judging how you were before, I'll leave it alone too. Luffy smiles in relief under his hood. But Anna shoots forward until their noses are almost touching. You better tell me if there is any pain. As a doctor, I absolutely positively cannot leave a wound unattended. Understand? Luffy nods quickly, slightly intimidated. Anna smiles lightly and pats his head. If you're really adamant about making it up to the crew, I wish you good luck, Luffy. Thanks. He grins in a D shape. Anna smiles a bit wider, then something catches her eye. Haruta, she yells, shooting up and pointing. What are you doing out of the infirmary? And did you take your bandages off? Luffy leans over to look around the raging nurse. He observes where she is pointing and sees a short brown-haired girl in a green outfit. She's all the way across the deck, though Luffy can see her sweating bullets. The girl in green stutters something that is too far away to hear and starts creeping away slowly. Anna's jaw flexes angrily, and she jerkily bends down to collect her box of medical equipment. Get back here before I choke you, she hollers. Haruta screams in panic and runs somewhere into the ship. Oh no you don't. Get back here. The nurse takes off chasing her at lightning speed, pumping her arms intensely. In a second she is gone, and in her place a stray breeze swishes Luffy's cloak. The teen watches where she left, then chuckles. Ace's crew is so funny. He keeps laughing to himself until his stump gives a hard sting. Ouch! Luffy cringes and shifts himself so that his shoulder isn't touching the railing. He leans back and sighs, trying to keep his high temperature down. Come on Ace ... come back. It takes all his willpower to keep his eyelids from falling shut, but eventually his exhausted gives in and Luffy allows himself some rest. Line here. He's here. Someone bring down the rope for the striker. Loud shouts and boots clapping against the deck break Luffy from his slumber. With bleary eyes, Luffy notices how darker everything is and realizes it's later in the day. I must have slept for hours. He cringes at the noise around him. It's killing his head. Commander Ace, welcome back. Luffy's breath hitches and he snaps his head around so fast that it makes a large cracking sound. But just as he turns, his vision turns spotty and he falls face first on the deck. Ugh, Luffy moans, barely pushing himself back up on his knees. He watches as the crew flocks around an area further down the ship and furrows his brows in frustration. Ace is right there. Luffy will absolutely wait not another damn second of his life. He wobbles to his feet, ignoring the blur on the edges of his vision. Taking a step forward, Luffy knows it's too unsteady and he should grab a railing for support. Instead he walks another step, then another, then another. Line here. Marco walks through the throng of his excited brothers and sisters. He steps up to the railing and peers down. Lo and behold, is the person he has been impatiently waiting for these past hours. Ace finishes tying his striker to the side of the ship, then readjusts his orange hat back on his head of black wavy hair. He looks up, and a big grin splits his face. Marco, he shouts happily, waving to his closest friend. The Phoenix allows himself a smile, pushing his annoyance away for just a moment, because Ace's smiles are so damn contagious. Hello Yoi, you might want to hurry up here. He calls down, lazy eyes looking serious. Ace nods and blasts up on the deck using the firepower on the soles of his feet. The crew near the railing all disperse to give Ace room. The fire user lands on the wooden deck with a clack, then brushes his hands on his shorts. Line here. He sees him. He's exactly how Luffy remembers. It's him, his brother, his life, his savior. Luffy's legs push even faster, and since no one looks in his direction, they don't see the sparkling tears blowing in the wind. The teen doesn't notice the single pair of eyes watching him carefully from the throne. Line here. Nice to see you everyone. Ace greets with a grin, freckled nose crinkling. The crew all shout their hellos. And then Ace walks up to Marco and smacks him on the back. Hey Marco, you look like you've got your feathers ruffled. He laughs. Marco peels Ace's hand off of his back and sighs. I asked you to get here as soon as possible, Yoi. What took so long? He grumbles. Ace scratches his nose sheepishly. Haha, well I kinda sorta almost got killed by a sea king. He smirks proudly. But I ate it instead. The entire crew sweat drops. Only Ace can turn a situation around like that and still manage to eat an entire sea king. Line here. Ace, Luffy calls softly, but his voice cracks. Ace, he tried again, but louder this time. Ace, line here. But anyway, Ace changes the subject. What was so urgent that you had to call me back? Marco opens his mouth to answer. Well, there is. Ace, Everyone turns in shock to where the caterwaul came from. Suddenly, something blurs past all of them at high speed and shoots directly at Ace. The fire user barely catches himself as he's tackled right in the stomach. He blinks in bewilderment at the small black figure attached to him like a leech. Oi, Marco starts, about to grab the kid who's hurting his brother. But Ace isn't injured. Luffy has an arm tied around Ace's torso and his head is tucked into his chest. He's embracing him. Ace is beyond confused. Looking down, he examines the small figure holding him like his life depends on it. I finally found you. The warm breath tickles Ace's bare stomach. Then it hits him. Ace doesn't believe it, but his instincts and honed brother senses are all screaming that it's damn true. Ace puts both hands on the teen's shoulders and pushes him back slightly to see his face. Luffy, the hooded figure nods, but Ace still has to ask again. Is that really you? Luffy steps out of Ace's grip. With his sole arm, he reaches for his hood and pulls it back to expose his teary-eyed, pale face to everyone. Most of the crew has shocked expressions that the offender is such a young kid, a sickly one at that. Marco feels his eyes widen in recognition and he exchanges looks with Thatch and Aizu, their shocked expressions mirroring his own. So we were right, Luffy is the slave kid. He thinks in bewilderment, watching Ace as he goes on his knees. Ace knows him. Luffy, he says again, like he can't believe it. Then suddenly he shoots forward and pulls his brother into a tight embrace. Luffy would have complained about the grip any other time, but right now it feels like heaven. He buries his face in Ace's neck to breathe in the comforting scent. What the hell happened to you? You're so thin and pale. And what are you doing so far from Dawn Island? Are you trying to give me a heart attack, you stupid little brother? Ace demands, worry and concern seeping into his voice. He curls his hand protectively in Luffy's fluffy black hair. A collective gasp goes through the crew at the news. This is Ace's little brother. Thatch looks like he's about to faint while Aizu's mouth is gaping like a fish. Marco watches the kid know. Ace's brother sniffle as he's trying to keep the tears at bay, but failing miserably. His eyes aren't cold and harsh like back on the island. They're full of sadness, anguish, and finally relief as he soaks in Ace's embrace. Luffy's no angry offender, Marco realizes. He's a scared kid. I'm sorry. The whimper draws Marco's attention back to the conversation. Everyone is listening in by now. But I had to find you. It's Dawn Island. Those stupid nobles wanted to take me, but the whole village ended up getting in trouble. Now Foosha Village is all captured and they sell us all as slaves. Luffy refrains from saying that they primarily came to the island to get revenge on Ace. Instead, he tells him it is Sabo's dad who started the whole thing. It's Sabo's dad's fault. Luffy sniffles and rubs his wet eyes on Ace's shoulder. He wanted to get back at us for getting rid of his blood heir. He sneers, then his expression softens. I'm so glad I found you, Ace. Ace doesn't say anything. He's shocked, speechless. He chokes on his words and his pupils shrink. That bastard. He finally growls. Why didn't he just leave us alone? Why didn't he leave you alone? Damn, I can't believe this is happening. Ace rests his forehead on Luffy's shoulder. The Straw Hat teen snuggles further into his brother. What about Gramps? He could get those bastards to back off. Luffy shakes his head slowly. He didn't even pick up the phone. His voice is hollow with disappointment. Ace feels his arms tremble in anger. You're the only one left. Rage pulses through Ace's veins. Despite being absent for most of the time, Garp was still family. But now, Ace just sees how easily disposable they are to their grandfather. Himself, he couldn't give two shits about. But Luffy he's Garp's blood grandson. The thought of the old man leaving him there to be tortured brings Ace into an unfathomable rage. Bastard. Fucking cowardly bastard. Marco watches the brothers with a new perspective. So that was the brat's story and why he wanted to see Ace so much. The Phoenix focuses his gaze on the flame user. He hadn't taken Ace for a person who was close with his family, much less a big brother. Ace always has been the littlest amongst them, and Marco can tell it's a bit surprising to his sibling. Plus there was how Ace acted when he first arrived on the crew. He was so dark and angry at the time and wouldn't trust a soul. With a look to the side, the commander notices his captain. He's sitting calmly at his throne, observing what's happening with a calculating look. Honestly, now it surprises Marco that Ace would throw away his life so easily doing assassination attempts on Pops when he apparently had a little brother to consider. Marco smirks and shakes his head in disbelief. Ace is such an idiot sometimes. Can you believe it? That they're brothers? Thatch whispers harshly, him and Aizu walking up beside Marco. I see a resemblance now. How could we not have known they were related? Aizu scoffs. They aren't. Marco thinks to himself. Ace only told me and Pops about his heritage, and with that it's impossible. There must be something else at play. SHH, Marco hushes them. I want to hear what they're saying. You don't have to be alone anymore, Lou. I'll help you, Ace says, determination in his voice. Thank you, Luffy whispers. All the weight of the past months falls off of Luffy's shoulders and now he can finally breathe. Ace frowns at the shakiness in his little brother's words. He pulls Luffy into a tighter hug, protecting him from all of the dangers that have been eating away at his spirit. Then he notices something wrong. He pulls away to examine his little brother. The first thing that catches his eye are the bandages covering his arm. Quickly, he unravels them from a weirdly compliant Luffy. A sea stone band, he says to himself. His theory is verified when he touches the cuff experimentally and his energy is drained immediately. That's why there are bruises on your skin. Ace realizes. Your power hasn't stopped it. When did you get this on? At the village. The first day they took over. Luffy replies, tone seldom. It's a pain in the ass. Don't worry, Lou. We'll get it off. And they better soon. Luffy doesn't look so good from Ace's view, and he can't stand seeing his brother suffer anymore. With another quick examination over Luffy's arm, he just finds the burns. To Luffy's relief, Ace seems to think he's solved the root of the problem. He discreetly pulls his cloak further over himself, hoping to hide everything underneath. Ace is about to pull away and call for a nurse, but when he sees Luffy fiddle with his cloak, he senses the sea stone is not the only thing wrong with his little brother. He kneels back down and tries to pull back the cloak to look over Luffy's body, but the Straw Hat teen pulls away. Luffy swallows the rising panic in his stomach. Ace raises an eyebrow at him and reaches out again, but Luffy shifts out of the way. They have an intense stare down for a few seconds, then Ace springs toward him. The struggle doesn't last long. Luffy is only using one hand and Ace is way stronger than him. Finally, Ace grabs a hold of Luffy's arm and tries to pry it away from his cloak. "What are you hiding?" Ace grits, actually having a little difficulty trying to move the limb out of the way. Luffy doesn't say anything, but just tries with all his might to keep Ace from seeing. A heating pulse from the sun has Luffy faltering, and in that moment, Ace rips past his defenses. They still. It feels like Luffy's underwater and everything is in slow motion. Ace is just sitting there with his eyes fixed solely on his missing arm. Seeing his brother's reaction, he feels like he's losing his arm all over again. Ace thinks Luffy's weak, he knows it. A bead of sweat rolls down Luffy's face and he doesn't feel so good. "Oh my god," Aizu whispers, hands coming up to his mouth. Ace still hasn't said anything yet, scaring Luffy to no end. Eventually, his brother reaches an arm out slowly for his wound. Luffy holds in a hiss of pain as Ace touches the delicate skin, mouth agape in horror. His gaze flicks desperately up to Luffy, as if to ask if this is some kind of sick joke. But Luffy looks solemnly at the ground and away from his brother. No, it's almost inaudible, but Luffy can hear the whisper from Ace's mouth. With much difficulty, Ace turns his attention from the stump to the bunch of bones that is his brother's torso. Now that the cloak is gone, Ace can see the clear signs of malnutrition on Luffy's body. It becomes more apparent when Ace lifts up his shirt to get a better look. "Shit," Thatch curses out loud. That kid is damn starved and Thatch had tried to serve him a full meal. He would have puked it up before he even got through a quarter of it. I almost heard Ace's brother. Since everyone is fixated on the figure under the cloak, they don't notice how Luffy's eyes start to flutter and roll upwards. "I can't ... it hurts." His focus slips and Luffy struggles to keep it in line. But the sun is too intense, the pain in his arm is too much, Ace's silence is too much and everything is just too much. Whitebeard stands abruptly from his throne and shouts something that sounds like a warning. But Luffy doesn't hear it. He's too busy falling into the comforting darkness of unconsciousness. "Line here." Ace's eyes grow impossibly wide as Luffy falls into his arms, unmoving. The word floats around in his head as he kneels, paralyzed by shock. "Someone get the nurses," Marco yells. The crew breaks up and scrambles around deck, shouting for doctors and gathering equipment. Ace, he doesn't say anything. His mind forces him to stare at the figure in his arms. Luffy lost his arm. Someone did that to his little brother. Someone touched him, someone hurt him. And now he's being removed from Ace's arms. He watches numbly as the nurses carry Luffy off to the infirmary. "Ace, can you hear me?" Marco shouts at him. The fire user stands up slowly, his eyes shadowed by his hat. He bites his lip and his arms shake. Ace, burning with rage, he sprints off the deck to an isolated part of the ship. As soon as he gets into the hallway, he punches the nearest wall and splits the wood. Damn it! Ace brings fire to his feet and swings around to cause more destruction. Smoke and dust hover around him. "I shouldn't have left." He punches harder and harder. Everything starts to blur around him. "I'm so weak. It's unforgivable. They are unforgivable. Ace is unforgivable." Something slams into his side and pins him against the crispy wall. Ace struggles in the iron grip trying to break free. "Ace, stop Yoi." Another hard shove makes Ace's struggling gradually cease. He's left a panting mess, a frown still deep on his features. Marco's grip on his shoulders is still as hard as before. Smoke and the distant cracking of fire are the only noise in the hallway. "Ace," Marco prompts. "Oi." He drops his head to catch Ace's eyes that are directed to the floor, but Ace turns away. "Don't do this, Ace." Do what? Ace mumbles. "Try to close me off, Yoi." "Ace, destroying the ship and giving me more paperwork is not going to make this situation any better." Ace doesn't react to Marco's attempt to lighten the mood. "Why did I let this happen to him?" Marco stares at his best friend, then sighs and lets go of his shoulders. Ace slumps a little, but remains on his feet. "Idiot. This was out of your control. Stop blaming yourself." "But it wasn't out of my control, Marco. I could have sent a letter to him, I could have visited, I could have just stayed home." His head snaps to the side. Marco's hand is raised, red. "Don't you dare say that, Ace. Do you regret having an adventure? Meeting us? Meeting me?" "No. But Luffy. What happened, Ace. I saw the kid before he got on this ship, and he looked like the coldest son of a bitch I ever met." Marco's hands settle on Ace's shoulders again, this time gently. "Ace, he doesn't trust as much anymore. He came all this way just to see you and get help, Yoi." Don't bury yourself in self-regret instead of helping your wounded brother. Ace flinches a little, pain pinching his heart. He's suddenly overcome with a need to see Luffy's bright grin. I need to go to Luffy, he says, face grim in the low light. Marco smirks, then leads him away with a hand on his back. Line here. Luffy wakes up to banging. Oh good, you're awake. A crowd of nurses place him on a white cot. The light isn't as intense as outside, so Luffy's headache isn't as bad. What happened? Luffy asks them. They begin to remove his cloak. You fainted on deck, Anna says, stepping into view. Luffy watches longingly as they place his treasured hat to the side. And with good reason too. You're the definition of sour health. She looks angry for some reason, but Luffy doesn't ask why. The noise of boards breaking makes Luffy flinch. Sounds of the crew shouting fills the silence until another set of crashes overwhelms them. What's happening? Luffy asks Anna innocently. She doesn't say anything, and keeps her mouth in a firm line as she examines his arm. He cringes as the nurses sit him up to get a better look at his injuries. The breaking sound stops, and Luffy watches the door for his brother to reappear. First he sees Pineapple Head at the entrance. They meet eyes for a second before Ace comes in and sits down numbly beside his brother. Marco lingers for a moment, then leaves them to the nurses. Ace doesn't meet his gaze, but Luffy keeps staring at him as the nurses check over his body. I feel like such a horrible big brother, Ace broods, looking at Luffy's stump. He doesn't know what scares him more, seeing what's there or not seeing what's there. As soon as I leave, the whole village falls apart and Luffy loses his arm for Oda's sakes. Luffy has gone through so much suffering and yet he persevered to find him. The nurses start removing the stitches from Luffy's arm. He sucks in a breath as the red and itchy skin is irritated even further. This probably hurts a little, doesn't it? You have an infection here and I need to apply new stitches and clean it, Anna says, gathering her tools together. You probably haven't had them changed at all, am I right? Luffy doesn't answer, and keeps his gaze trained on Ace's black locks as his anxiety builds. Anna mutters something under her breath then gets to work on it. Two more nurses get to work on the sea stone bracelet on Luffy's wrist. With silent efficiency, they produce a small saw and stick it in the keyhole. Ace watches with blank emotion as they attempt to saw through the cuff. The nurse makes a sound of satisfaction when the saw stops. The other fiddles around with it and the cuff finally pops off Luffy's wrist. Luffy sighs and visibly sags. The energy feels like magic thrumming through his veins. His pale skin brightens up immediately and the sickness fades to a dull irritation. Luffy sits with eyes closed and a content smile as the nurses finish fussing with him. Anna flicks her eyes up to his face, then stifles a chuckle when she returns to her task. All right then, Anna stands up and wipes the sweat from her brow. You don't make it easy, kid, but we've finished. Luffy watches the nurses put away equipment into different drawers. All you need to do is rest. Eat a semi-decent meal and not be disturbed. She eyes Ace still silently slouched in his chair. Got it. Luffy nods enthusiastically. Thank you, Amma. It's Anna, she shouts, a tick mark appearing on her head. She gathers her nurses and they head out the door, likely reporting to their captain. Luffy watches Anna until she is gone. Something is still bothering her. He can feel it. He pouts, then remembers the other person in the room. Silence presses into them as Luffy grips the bed sheets. He works his jaw up and down, tension building in his shoulders. Ace, I'm sorry for being weak. His words are muffled as he's pulled into Ace's chest. The embrace is so tight and he almost pulls away in surprise. But suddenly he feels his brother's frame shake as sobs rack his body. I'm sorry. Ace blubbers. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Luffy. His arms curl protectively around his light, his sunshine. If anyone outside hears Ace cry, he doesn't care. Luffy lifts his head out of Ace's chest to see him. His eyes water looking at Ace's tear-sodden face. Luffy instantly feels guilty for doubting his brother even a second. Ace, it's just an arm. Besides, tears slip down Luffy's face, falling down to his shaky smile. I look just like Shanks. Line here. The soft pitter of waves against wood pulls Luffy into awareness. NGH, am I there yet? He wonders dazedly. The next island shouldn't take that long to get to. A firm squeeze on his hand brings it all back. Luffy opens his eyes and immediately recognizes the Moby Dick infirmary. Right, I found the Whitebeard pirates. A soft gasp escapes his lips and he turns his head sharply to the side. Tears of relief form in Luffy's eyes as he gazes at Ace's sleeping face. The fire user's upper half is laying on his bed while his lower is still sitting on a chair. Drool pools out of his mouth and wets the bed sheets being crushed by his cheek. One arm is extended out and is holding Luffy's hand in a loving grip. Luffy struggles to sit up in bed without rousing Ace. Luckily, he only grumbles and holds Luffy's hand tighter. Luffy chuckles. Ace's narcolepsy is so funny. You look better already. Anna walks into the infirmary, accompanied by Marco, Aizu and Thatch, whom is holding a steaming bowl. Luffy nods. I feel 10 times better than yesterday. That's good to hear. The sea stone was putting a serious damper on her healing process. But, considering the fact that you have 2 infections, one on your former arm and one on your leg, serious malnutrition, a bad fever and a bad burn on your hand, you have healed considerably well. You should be able to make a full recovery in about a week, Anna says, shifting her glasses on her nose. Luffy blinks at her. You're mad at me. It isn't a question. Anna raises a thin eyebrow. Excuse me, is it because I lied? He asks, face completely neutral. Luffy, she starts, removing her glasses. I asked you to tell me if you had any more injuries. It's my job as a doctor to make sure everyone on this ship is healthy. So when you hit all these wounds ... it just made me upset, Luffy. I'm not mad. I'm sorry. He bows from his sitting position. Oh, Luffy rubs the newly formed bump on his head. Don't get me wrong, I'm still annoyed. Thatch, make sure he eats that entire bowl. Slowly, last thing we want is him throwing up everywhere. She places her glasses delicately back on her nose and turns back to Luffy. If you're anything like the one asleep on the bed right now, I implore you not to exert yourself. Anna struts out of the room with her nose high in the air. A wisp of her hair slaps Thatch on the nose and he crinkles it, barely containing a sneeze. Anna sure is good at her job. Aizu comments once she is gone. Her attitude could use a little help. Thatch mutters, rubbing his itchy nose. Anyway, here's a nice small meal for you. Thatch swings a tray around so that it is hovering above Luffy's lap. He delicately places the steaming soup on top with a spoon at the side. Oh, thank you so much, big hair guy. Luffy exclaims gleefully, carefully pulling his hand out of Ace's grip so he can attack the meal. It's Thatch, he corrects, but it goes unheard by the teen. You should eat that slowly, or you're going to and you finished already. Luffy licks his lips and sighs in content. Delicious. A gurgling fills the air and Luffy's complexion turns a little green. I feel sick. I just told you not to eat it so fast. Thatch yells. After a collective moment, he sighs and looks at the ground guiltily. Look, I'm sorry I tried to give you that meal earlier. I should have known what state you were in sooner. Noah, you shouldn't be sorry for giving me food. Food is great. It's my stupid tummy's fault for making me sick. Luffy pouts at his stomach and pokes it as if dealing a punishment. Still, why didn't you say you were hurt earlier? We could have helped you, says Aizu, frowning. He feels bad for thinking ill of the kid earlier. Luffy pushes the tray off his lap, then slides his hand back into Ace's. Thatch and Aizu smile softly at the show of affection. Because you lied. You said Ace was on the ship, but he wasn't, so I got mad. Luffy looks down at his bed sheets. And I didn't want Ace to know. I was afraid he'd think I'm weak. Think you're weak. You're just a kid and yet you went through so much, not to mention with one arm and sea stone, just to find your brother instead of running away. I don't know how he could ever think you're the tiniest bit weak. Thatch says sternly, mad that the kid hid his suffering for such a delusion. Luffy shrugs. Ace always calls me weak. I just didn't want anyone else to turn their back on me in the village back home. Boy, I'm sure that Ace doesn't call you weak in a mean way. He's probably just worried about you. Aizu says. They feel the same way about Ace since he's their youngest. On several instances have they felt worry when he'd go on a mission alone or took on a whole enemy pirate ship by himself. He's just so reckless that it drives them all up the wall sometimes. Marco has remained silent this entire time, observing Luffy quietly with his arms crossed and back up against the wall. His gaze flicks down to the drooling flame user. Marco watches how his face would scrunch up, then relax when he squeezes his brother's hand tighter. Earlier, Marco starts, gaining everybody's attention. On the island, you said you couldn't trust anybody, Yoi. I hadn't thought much of it then, but I heard you say you'll only trust one person. I meant Ace, Luffy says, now touching his brother's hair. He somewhat still can't believe Ace is here with him. I'm sorry we didn't take you with us then. It would have saved a lot of unnecessary inconveniences. Luffy rolls his eyes. Enough with the sorries. It already happened, so stop going on about it. Apologizing won't do anything at all. Marco blinks at him through lazy eyes, then exhales with a smirk. Yes, I guess you're right, Yoi. He likes the Luffy of the now more than the then. But I have one more question. Why did you bother hiding who you were this whole time? I mean, you knew we wouldn't harm you. So why didn't you show us who you were while you were on the ship? All the commanders turn to the kid, all immensely curious at what his answer will be. I wasn't hiding who I was. I told you my name, didn't I? Luffy replies, head tilting in confusion. The commanders exchange looks, also confused. Well, yeah, but you kept your hood over your face the entire time. We couldn't recognize you from before. Aizu points out. That's because my head was hurting from the sun. It made me sick, so I kept my hood up. He smiles, for some reason proud of himself. But why didn't you just tell us? Thatch asks, gesturing his hands out. Luffy blinks at them owlishly. Because you never asked. Oh, Aizu sucks in his cheeks and looks at the ceiling. Thatch rubs his nose sheepishly while grinning like an idiot. Even the normally composed Marco is flustered, looking to the side with a light blush dusting his cheeks. How did we not think of that? He inwardly scowls. We were tiptoeing around him like idiots. Thatch coughs to ease the tension. Anyway, Pops wants to meet up with you later to discuss some Things? Luffy asks. Well, we don't exactly know yet. Thatch chuckles nervously. But I'm sure you'll be fine. Pops is pretty forgiving when he wants to be. Luffy nods. Thank you so much for taking me here. He bows deeply, remembering Makino's manner lessons. A hand pats his unruly black hair. No problem, kid, Marco says as Thatch and Aizu walk out of the infirmary. He follows them soon after with a smile on his face. Marco likes how much happier Luffy is. Luffy watches the commanders leave with a lingering smile. He has almost reached his goal. The groan reverberates around the room and Luffy looks down at Ace with amusement. Ace's obsidian eyes flutter open to crumpled white sheets. He grumbles in distaste when he feels how sticky his face is. Why do I always drool when I have narcoleptic attacks? Ace lifts his head off the wet spot on the bed and wipes his face vigorously. Shishishi. The chuckle snaps Ace's mind back into focus. He looks at his real and not a dream brother. You're so funny when you sleep, Ace. For some reason Ace can't bring himself to laugh along. How are you, Luffy? Are you feeling okay? I feel a million times better. Alla is a great doctor. He waves Ace's concern away with a chuckle. Do you think she'll join my crew? Oh wait, I wanted Alice to join. But she doesn't want to. Ace sweat drops. I think he means Anna. But who's this Alice person? He shakes his head to clear the confusion. Why didn't they check your injuries earlier? If Anna had seen your state sooner she would have dragged you over to the infirmary first thing. Suddenly the bed sheet seems very interesting to Luffy. I hid them from her. If she knew, then she would have told you about them. And why wouldn't you want me to know? Luffy's head bows even further. Because I didn't want you to think I was weak. I couldn't afford to have you leave me, so I pretended to be okay. Ace frowns and grips the bed sheets in his fists. You are such an idiot. He spits. I am your brother. You're supposed to be weak. And it's my job as the older one to protect you, not turn you away because you couldn't do something for yourself. Ace reaches forward and grips Luffy's shoulders. Please don't ever feel that way again. Luffy's lower lip trembles and he nods vigorously. He leans his head into Ace's shoulder in a comforting manner. Thanks, Ace. He mumbles into his brother's shoulder. Ace smiles and copies the gesture. They stay merely basking in each other's presence. So, Ace lets up off of Luffy's shoulder to look at him seriously. How did you escape Foosha Village? Luffy sighs tiredly. We all tried to escape, but an admiral named Akainu. Yeah, Akainu had magma powers and he captured everyone but me. I managed to escape, but not without losing this. Luffy nods to his missing arm. Ace scowls and adds one more person to his beat the shit out of list. Did they get Makino? And the bandits? Luffy nods, a sad look drooping his features. I missed them, Ace. Even the bandits. I'm sorry, Luffy. Ace sighs guiltily. Why are you apologizing? I found you, didn't I? Luffy yells, annoyance evident in his voice. I can't waste any more time. I've got to save everyone soon. Ace blinks at his outburst, then snickers. You really are an idiot. He stands up and grabs Luffy's straw hat on the table, then shoves it on his brother's head. We dumbass. Nada, you came here for my help, didn't you? Line here. Despite Luffy's urgency to get going, he had been restricted to bed rest after he fell on his face after trying to sneak out of the infirmary. The nurses had found him a shivering mass on the floor, and after a quick reprimand from Anna and Ace, he was forced to comply to their demands. Marco had informed Luffy that they were sailing in the direction of the East Blue full speed. Luffy had felt his spirits lighten up a little at the news, but he still felt something nagging at the back of his head that would only clear up if he talked to their captain. Due to his little episode, Anna told everyone on board that Luffy was not to have any visitors, only with the rare exception of Ace. Anna claimed that they would only crowd him and bombard him with questions. However, it became apparent that 3 commanders in specific still had things to ask, and they often tried to sneak in, only to be beaten and thrown out again. The Straw Hat teen had pouted at the thought of being left alone for the entire day, but Ace assured him he would be there most of the time. Luffy had endured the long days of recovery until he was nursed back to health. So here Luffy is, emerging from the infirmary for the first time in days with his hat planted firmly on his head to prevent any migraines. I'm finally letting you out of bed, so don't make me regret it by making yourself worse again, says Anna, fiddling with his bandages last minute and straightening his clothes. Kind of like a mom. Shishishi, I won't. I just gotta talk to Banana Mustache Austin. Luffy giggles as she squeezes his nose playfully. Exactly, so that's why you've got to look in tip-top shape. But I see Pops all the time, and I've never bothered with my appearance. Ace objects. Anna eyes his orange cowboy hat and shirtless ensemble. That's because you'd look odd wearing anything else. Besides, you'd burn anything else way too easily. She finishes tying the ribbon on Luffy's cloak and pulls it tight. This guy, on the other hand, has caused a lot of trouble. Pops is doing him a favor, so he should at least look presentable. Favor? Ace snorts. He's my brother. Of course he'd let him stay on the ship. Anna stands up and looks at Ace seriously. That may be so, but the crew is still pretty angry with the little guy. It wasn't a small thing he did. Ace swallows and draws his lips in a firm line. Luffy watches them with a frown, then sets his shoulders back. Let's go. He's pretty much talking to himself, but Ace follows him as he walks in Whitebeard's direction. Good luck, Anna shouts behind him. Luffy smiles a bit, but it soon melts into a frown when he comes upon the man who controls the fate of the village, and himself. Their gazes meet instantly and forcefully, neither showing an ounce of weakness. Brooms drop and laughing stops as all activity on deck gradually slows to a halt. The crew watches attentively from their posts with different expressions of curiosity. The commanders slowly make their way to the main deck, wondering about the sudden quietness. When they catch a glimpse of Luffy for the first time in days, they inch closer to their captain. The silence stretches out as future pirate king and strongest man in the world clash in a battle of wills. Eyes widen as Luffy suddenly bows deeply. I'm sorry for causing you trouble, he yells, making sure his words are heard by everyone on the ship. You admit to being the brat who destroyed our flags? Whitebeard questions. Luffy nods, still bowing. Ace eyes his brother and captain nervously. Yes, it was me. He stands up and meets the gaze of each crew member. To their surprise, he goes down on his knees and bows with his head to the ground. I'm sorry everyone for putting your friends in danger. Flags are a symbol of pride for a pirate and I just defiled it without care. I hope you all can find some way to forgive me. Oi, Luffy. Ace leans toward his brother. You don't have to. But, Luffy interrupts. He lifts his head to look Whitebeard directly in the eye. I don't regret it. I needed to find Ace, and if I went back in time, I'd do the exact same thing. Whitebeard watches the boy with a calculating look. He can feel something in him that he also senses in Ace. Making a decision, he thumps the bottom of his staff on the wooden deck. The air vibrates and Luffy wobbles from his spot on the ground, falling to the side with wide eyes. Gururara, brat, that's all I wanted to hear. I accept your apology on behalf of the crew and myself. Luffy's eyes widen even further. The crew too? Luffy asks, looking around at everyone hopefully. One of the men steps forward and snorts. Yeah, kid. Do you really think we would still be sailing towards the East Blue if we thought otherwise? Several other men laugh in agreement. Plus, we couldn't just ignore all that you said happened to your island. Someone else says. Then they all start to laugh, and Ace pats Luffy's shoulder. See, nothing to worry about, little brother. Luffy smiles brightly up at Ace and starts laughing himself. Although, Luffy gazes up at Whitebeard, significantly more relaxed than before. Why didn't you just talk to one of our allied pirate crews? You surely would have met up with at least one on your travels. They ignored me cause I was a kid. Luffy huffs. No one would listen to me. Ace snickers and pushes down on Luffy's large hat, causing the younger to cry out in protest. He can feel Anna's glare scorching the back of his neck but ignores it. I sorta don't blame them. You're too immature to take seriously. Luffy whines and readjusts his hat. But I've been wondering this for a while. If the celestial dragons fricking took over a whole island, why haven't we heard a lick of it? That's just who they are. They probably didn't think it was even worth talking about. The Marines like to keep this stuff under wraps too cause it makes them look bad. The fishman commander, Namor, informs them. Luffy walks up to Whitebeard until he is right in front of his feet. Awesome, I can't do this by myself. His eyes shine with determination. So will you please help me free Foosha Village? Everyone laughs with Whitebeard's the loudest by far. I thought we already established this, brat. Of course we will. You're forgetting that Ace is part of our family. And we don't let anything bad happen to one of our own. The crew cheers in unison. Ace steps next to his brother with a relieved smile. Thanks, Pops. This means a lot. He blushes and bows. Whitebeard smiles and waves his hand dismissively. It's no problem at all, brat. Anything for my sons and daughters. Whitebeard knows how much Ace hates being dependent. He's glad he has gained the sense to not rush in recklessly by himself without asking for help. He doesn't want to think of what would have happened if Ace and Luffy left to handle the situation themselves. Luffy can't seem to stop grinning. Finding Ace gave him more than what he had expected. One by one the crew comes up to greet him and apologize for being hostile when he first came on deck. Then everyone goes off on their own, and the atmosphere is natural as if nothing ever happened. It's impressive you came up with that plan by yourself, Yoi. Marco smacks Luffy's back, making him stumble forwards. Ace laughs and tackles Luffy in a hug from behind. Yeah, impressive, considering how thick-headed you are. Luffy struggles in his brother's grip. Baka, I'm not thick-headed. He kicks Ace's shin and he lets go with a howl of pain. You're gonna pay for that. Ace pounces on Luffy and they fall down on the deck, wrestling. They're practically the same. Marco's sweat drops. Thatch and Aizu appear next to Marco, laughing. Haha, Ace are getting beat by a kid. Thatch mucks. Ace pauses in his ministrations and glares at the chef. What was that? He growls, pressing a hand on Luffy's face while he flails like a fish under Ace's body weight. Ace, what did I tell you and Luffy about taking it easy? A chill runs through everyone's spine as the devil herself appears. Ace stutters something incoherent and scrambles off of Luffy. What are you talking about, Anna? Ace straightens out Luffy's clothes and hat while sporting a serene smile. He's perfectly fine. Right, Lou? Luffy starts to sweat when Anna's beady gaze lands on him. He shifts his gaze to the side and puckers his lips. Why yeah, Ace and I totally weren't wrestling or anything. Ace feels like face palming. He had forgotten about Luffy's inability to lie. Is that so? Anna rips Luffy's cloak aside to see his bandages all tangled around his torso and hanging limply off his hand. As I thought. Sit still while I try not to kill you. Luffy cries out in terror when she grabs his shirt collar and drags him to the ground. She begins to reapply the bandages while muttering something about idiots everywhere she looks. And why am I even here? Once in a while she'd yank hard enough to make Luffy cry out, but then she'd reprimand him for squirming. She's a force of nature. Thatch whispers to the trio. They all nod vigorously. Anna draws another whine out of the teen when she pulls particularly hard on a piece of bandage. Hey Ace, did you know your brother has a good singing voice? Aizu asks. Ace turns to him with a baffled expression. Yeah, but how do you know that? We heard him singing at a restaurant. Thatch claps his hands together and sighs dreamily. It was great. He sounded like an angel. Luffy sang in front of a crowd. On stage, Ace splutters then laughs mockingly. Boy Luffy, you sang in a restaurant. Shut up. Luffy snaps with a light blush adorning his cheeks. Stop moving. Anna pulls on a bandage and Luffy cries out indignantly. But do you really sing? Luffy mutters a little maybe to the floor and ignores them. Aw, don't be like that, Lou. I was just joking. Ace plops next to his brother and pinches his cheeks. I'm proud of you. Soon, we'll be back at Foosha Island to deal with those damn Marines and show him what we've got. He lets go of Luffy's face and holds out a fist. Anna finishes tying his bandages and Luffy connects his fist with Ace's while grinning like a maniac. I hope you're ready to take them on. But maybe you've been slacking off in your training. Ace teases, nudging Luffy's side with his elbow. No way, Luffy protests. I'll show you just how hard I've been training and beat you. Ace snorts and pulls on Luffy's cheek and it stretches and stretches and stretches. Wait, all three commanders including Anna stare blankly as Ace releases the skin and it comes back to smack Luffy in the face. Beat me, dream on. Ace sneers. Then he jumps off to another part of the deck to escape his brother's wrath. I'll make you see. Come back here and fight me. Luffy bounds up and chases his brother to where he disappeared. The remaining pirates, with the exception of Marco, watch Luffy leave with their mouths hitting the ground. Anna blinks a few times then snaps out of her stupor. Wait, do not aggravate your wounds. Luffy. She runs after the duo with a fist raised in the air. Luffy, what was that I just saw? Hold on. Aizu follows close after, immensely curious about the teen. Marco and Thatch watch them run through the crew who are trying their best to get out of their way. The Phoenix looks over to his still gaping brother and closes his mouth with his index finger. Looks like we figured out what Luffy's devil fruit can do, yoy. Marco sighs. Holy crap. I wonder what the hell that was. Thatch yells, clearly enthralled by Luffy's powers. He probably kept that in for a long time. Poor kid was probably so irritated. Marco nods, silently agreeing. There is nothing worse than having your powers taken away by sea stone. It takes away something so vital yet you can still feel it coursing through your veins. Just a breath away from being let out. Like teasing a dog with a treat and never letting him have it. Good thing he found us. Thatch continues, running a comb through his pompadour. I'm glad that he and Ace are so close. It was probably difficult, searching for his brother when he had no idea where he was. Marco stares past Thatch to where Ace and Luffy are battling despite Anna's warnings. No, Thatch, he wasn't just searching for his brother. Thatch cocks his head to the side. Marco smiles and turns back to his confused brother. He was searching for his savior. Line here. Pops, pops. The lookout scrambles down from the crow's nest, telescope in hand. What is it, Calvin? Whitebeard asks, chugging down some sake. The red force is approaching. Whitebeard pauses in his drinking. What is that red-haired brat doing in the East Blue? What is that red-haired brat doing in the East Blue? Whitebeard asks himself. He takes another swig of sake and swishes it around in his mouth for a moment. Calvin, do they look like they want to fight? No, Calvin mumbles, extending his telescope. There isn't anything that's indicating a challenge on their part. Whitebeard swallows and frowns. The sunlight beats down on his large head and he squints in mild discomfort. All right then, let's see what the brat wants. Out of the corner of his eye, Whitebeard sees Marco emerging from his cabin. The 1st Division commander looks weary, and he rolls his stiff shoulders as he walks towards his captain. Is there something up, yoy? I heard a bit of commotion. Marco says. He cracks his neck and tension falls from his body. Been busy, my son? Whitebeard asks. Just a lot of paperwork this time. Ace completely wrecked the hallway leading to the 2nd Division bunks. That's my fiery son. Whitebeard chuckles. Have you seen our guest around lately? Marco shakes his head. I haven't. Luffy could literally be anywhere on this ship. It's been less than 24 hours and he's already made himself at home here. He shakes his head and furrows his eyebrows. Anyway, you didn't answer my question, yoy. Is there something wrong? Nothing at the moment, but we may have another visitor on board. Marco makes a confused sound, then turns to look where his captain was previously looking. Realization sets in and the Phoenix groans, while Whitebeard laughs at his misery. You've got to be kidding me. Whitebeard. The Red Force glides along the glassy blue waters next to the Moby Dick. A man dressed in a black cloak and floral pants jumps onto the deck. His signature crazy red hair sparks recognition for anyone who sees. Shanks, Marco grumbles, crossing his arms almost defensively. As soon as Shanks lands on the wooden deck, energy waves ripple through the air and lots of the crew tumbles over, unconscious. You brat, I told you to stop doing that. Whitebeard booms. His friendly personality slides into an edgier one. Oops, sorry, Shanks chuckles, obviously the most easygoing among the group. Sometimes I just can't help it. What are you doing here? If the Marines see us together in the East Blue, they are going to get on my ass for it. Shanks smiles and pats the dust from his pant legs. He places a nonchalant hand on his sword and walks up to Whitebeard with small, easy strides. I was going to ask you the same question. Some nuisance group of pirates was provoking my crew who came here on a sake run. So, I came here to deal with them myself. Shanks snickers, although they were hardly worth the challenge. It only felt worth it when I scared them to death. Why did you come on my ship, brat? Whitebeard asks. Ever since the younger brat came on his ship, he can't help but feel a little weary of others. Shanks places his sole arm over his heart and reels back over dramatically. What? Am I not allowed to visit my fellow Yonko? I'm hurt, Newgate. We don't get to talk often. Besides, I decided to give you some of the sake I just acquired. Come on, I know how much you love sake. Despite how relaxed Shanks looks, Whitebeard can see his crew on the Red Force staring at him with their hands on their weapons. His own crew is no different. They are both waiting for a fight to break out. After a moment of inner deliberation, Whitebeard gestures to the grinning captain. All right, brat, bring it over and sit down. Shanks grins even wider and makes a beckoning gesture to his crew. Several of his crewmates roll barrels to the edge of the ship and lower it down with ropes. Altogether, there are 6 large barrels full of untouched sake. Marco, Whitebeard addresses. Crack open a barrel, would you? Marco nods and obediently opens one. The sweet smell immediately assaults his nose as he tosses the top of the barrel away. He picks the barrel up with ease and places it in front of his captain. Thank you, my son. Whitebeard pours some of the sake in his large sake cup, then takes a sip. He swallows, then makes a hum of approval. Not bad, brat. Not bad. Shanks chuckles, then pulls out his own bottle of sake. He takes a swig and some of the liquid escapes down his bobbing throat. That stuff's great. Hey, Marco, join my crew. Marco cringes. No, oh come on. Well, it was worth a shot anyway. Shanks laughs, then takes another few gulps of his drink. So, Shanks leans forward and taps the sake bottle on his lips thoughtfully. His eyes narrow and his eyebrow raises. On the Red Force, the crew shuffles and someone cocks a gun. What are you doing in the East Blue, Whitebeard? Shanks's face looks mischievous, but his tone holds suspicion. Whitebeard scrutinizes the young captain. He seems oddly defensive. I don't know why I should be answering any questions you have, brat. You're many years too young to demand things from me. I'm not making any demands. Shanks chuckles, waving his bottle defensively. Just making conversation is all. Some scuffling is heard in Marco's peripheral, but he ignores it in favor of the tension leaking all over the main deck. But I am really curious why you would bother coming over to the weakest blue. We all have our reasons, Whitebeard says, dodging the question. The scuffling gets louder, and this time Marco looks over his shoulder. And I'm no different, just taking a stroll. Oi, Marco starts, realizing who is coming with growing dread. Stroll, please. Is there something you're after? More guns click on the Red Force, causing the same to happen on the Moby Dick. You're never this straightforward, brat. Is there something in the East Blue I should be aware of? Whitebeard asks, frowning. Shanks has lost all amusement and he stares at Whitebeard darkly. Nothing you should concern yourself with. The smile is chilling and some of the crew swallows nervously. Marco can hear the stomping and distinct sound of Ace yelling clearly now. He starts running to the stairs in an effort to stop the boys before they make an appearance. Are you telling me to leave? Whitebeard asks, aware of where Marco has gone. No, just letting you know that there is nothing here. Where has your first commander gone, HM? Boy, you're prying a little too much on a ship that isn't even yours. Marco is almost to the stairs. Then Whitebeard won't have to keep up this empty chatter anymore. Stay down there. Marco wants to shout. But just as he reaches the stairs, a blur of red and black bursts out and almost tackles him to the ground. Marco, stop, Ace. He's trying to kill me. Luffy latches onto the commander's shoulders like a monkey. Marco totters at the weight and grabs Luffy when he accidentally almost falls off. Get back here, you idiot. I told you to stop sticking things in my ears while I'm asleep. Ace stomps up the stairs with the rage of 1,000 bulls. Luffy screams, then jumps off Marco's shoulders. Wait, Luffy, don't run in that way, yoy. Marco tries to reach for him, but Luffy slips through his grip and runs straight in the direction of the meeting. Shit, Shishishi, come get me now, Ace. Luffy sticks out his tongue at his brother in a taunting gesture. He's too busy looking back for Ace that he doesn't see the commotion where he is heading to. Luffy lets out a cry of indignation when he crashes into something hard. The sound of glass breaking fills his eardrums and something wet partially splashes on his face. The teen groans and sits up. The mystery liquid smells sweet and when he tastes it, he grimaces. It's disgusting. What's the big idea? Luffy shoots a glare at whatever got in his way, just as the other does the same. In a moment, their faces light up and they gasp in surprise. Anchor, Shanks, both crews blink at them, then do a simultaneous EHHH. Marco flips his arms exasperatedly. I shouldn't be surprised anymore. I'm done with this kid's secrets. But then it clicks why Luffy's hat annoys him so much. It's Shanks's. Of course. Anchor, what the hell are you doing on Whitebeard's ship? Shanks demands, definitely not expecting this. I can't talk to you. Luffy yells immediately. He runs back to the safety of his brother. Luffy immediately dashes behind the flame user and peeks at Shanks cautiously. Well, why not? Luffy shuffles further behind Ace and looks at the ground uncertainly. We promised. The next time we meet I was going to be a great pirate. He trails off, swinging his foot while speaking to the ground. How about this time, it doesn't count? Shanks suggests, wanting to see the boy. Obviously it doesn't take much convincing, as Luffy sprints back to Shanks and hugs him tight. Shanks, Luffy yells with glee. Shanks laughs and swings the boy around. The thick atmosphere immediately eases and everyone watches the pair with mixed curiosity and awe. Marco feels the air around him grow hotter and he looks beside him to see Ace, who is sporting a major unimpressed look. Luffy, what are you doing here? Shanks asks again as he sets the boy back on his feet. The Whitebeard pirates are helping me and Ace take back Foosha Village. He responds. Shanks frowns, a little lost. Why would you need to take back Foosha Village? Shanks asks with growing dread. Because the stupid celestial dragon guy took everybody and is selling them as slaves. I escaped but I needed help so I came to get Ace. Shanks grits his teeth and shoots a look over to Whitebeard. The old captain merely nods and Shanks knows that it's true. Are all the villagers ... sold? How about Makino? Is she alright? Luffy shakes his head and his face twists into an expression of anguish. I don't know. I left her behind when I ran away. Luffy looks dejectedly at the ground. I couldn't even protect her. I guess I'm not ready to wear your treasure yet. Shanks flicks his eyes over to his crew. He isn't surprised at all when he sees his own anger mirrored in them. His first mate, Ben Beckman, gives a small nod which Shanks returns. He has made a set decision. Anchor, Luffy looks up shyly from under the shade of the straw hat he wears. I'm glad you escaped. I honestly don't know why the hell I haven't heard about this earlier. I'm sorry I haven't done anything to help at all. Luffy opens his mouth to object but Shanks interrupts him. But I want to do something now. Luffy, I stand by my decision of giving you that hat. There's nothing wrong with needing a little help sometimes. So don't ever feel like you're unworthy of that hat ever again. Wear it with confidence in yourself. Luffy's jaw works up and down while he tries to form words. But in the end, he seals his lips shut and stands up straight with tears at the corners of his eyes. Don't worry, Shanks, I will. Shanks grins and shoves the hat further on Luffy's head. Who said I was worrying? A softer smile forms on his lips. But I'm going to help you take back Foosha along with old Newgate here. Luffy giggles and Shanks hugs him tight. Marco shifts the collar on his shirt when the temperature rises again. Whitebeard watches the two with interest. Obviously, they have some sort of history with each other, and based on their interaction, it is a good one. He grins slyly when he realizes that Luffy may have been the thing that Shanks was protecting from him. Luffy breaks away from the hug when he spots the crew lined up along the railing of the Red Force. With a grand smile, he jogs up to them and waves enthusiastically. Hi Ben. Yes up. Lucky Roo. Everyone. The whole crew waves back and cheers their greetings with the exception of Ben, who merely smirks and raises a hand. Shanks smiles at the cheerful teen, then notices Ace in the corner of his eye. He turns his head, about to say a greeting, but stops. Ace doesn't look the least bit happy. Shanks can almost see the dark cloud looming over his head. Hey Ace, what's up? He calls out. Shanks was hoping to lighten his mood, but the boy just scowls at him. The red-haired captain looks over to Marco for help, only to be met with a shrug. Ace doesn't know why he's being like this. For some reason when Shanks touches Luffy, he feels like punching the man out. But it's weird. He has never felt this protective before the Foosha incident happened. I just feel really annoyed with him. Ace's mouth twitches in distaste. Come on Ace, why are you distant all of a sudden? You were so much nicer when we met before. You even thanked me for saving Anchor. Shanks reasons. Yeah, so. Ace snorts, but he softens, only to stiffen when Luffy returns to Shanks's side. Everybody still looks exactly the same. Chishishi. The teen laughs. Shanks notices Ace's odd behavior. When realization sets in, Shanks smirks wickedly at the fire user. Ace's eyes narrow suspiciously. Somebody's jealous, Shanks hums in his head. A sudden urge to irk Ace takes over him. Let's see if he blows up like a firework. Boy Luffy, said Boy looks at Shanks expectantly with wide eyes. Ace watches them like a hawk about to swoop down on its prey. If you give me a hug, I'll give you an extra big piece of meat later. Deal. Luffy launches himself at Shanks and practically squeezes him to death. The captain's face turns from red to blue when the oxygen drains from his body. And chor. Let go. He wheezes, slapping Luffy to get off. Oops, sorry Shanks. Luffy releases him and the man gulps in the much-needed air. Geez, kid's got a grip, Shanks says mentally, coughing away. But it was so worth it based on the look on Ace's face. Nearby crew scatter to escape the heat that radiates off of the fire user, with the exception of Marco. Ace practically growls as he marches over to Luffy and pulls him at his side. Damn Shanks, don't listen to him Luffy, he's just teasing you, Ace says to his brother, but still glaring daggers at Shanks. Shanks's eyebrow twitches. Well, that's just the sort of thing we do. Shanks grits, pulling Luffy back. When was the last time he saw you Ace yanks Luffy back, making him stumble a little. Don't be hogging him all the time, Ace. He needs to be around his father figure. Ace snorts at the claim. Father figure. Please, you're no family. Flame brain. Drunkard. Hey Marco, can they stop now? The two men engaged in the argument turned sharply to Luffy, who has somehow made it all the way to Marco and is now tugging on his sleeve. I don't know Luffy yoy. They may be too childish to know when, he says, then he pats Luffy's head. Shanks and Ace immediately glare at the phoenix. Marco's sweat drops at the malice in their gazes. You're such a mother hen Marco. Yeah, you're unneeded here, join my crew. Marco feels a tick mark appear on his head. Since when am I the victim yoy? A cough resounds in the clearing, and everyone looks up to Whitebeard who has a slightly amused expression. I see you all know each other well, but I believe we need to talk about more pressing matters. Shanks, I will accept your offer to help the brats. We'll need all the backup we can get. Of course, Shanks says. I could never do that to Luffy or Ace. Ace looks at Shanks, immediately feeling guilty for being snappy. Sorry for being short, Shanks. I'm really thankful you're helping us out. Ace apologizes. Shanks chuckles and smacks Ace's back fondly. Don't fuss about it, kid. I understand where you're coming from. Shanks turns back to Whitebeard, suddenly serious. Have you thought up some sort of plan yet? No, Whitebeard sighs. This is a very precarious situation. Two Yonkos attacking Marines, and more specifically celestial dragons, will no doubt bring a buster call. It would cause a catastrophe for both the residents of that island and our crews. We must handle this carefully. An uneasy silence settles across the deck as the information is processed. Several looks are exchanged as everyone weighs the odds. Ace and Luffy deflate a little. They should have known it would be next to impossible to accomplish. Ace looks down at the deck, distraught. Maybe we shouldn't be pulling them into all of this. He looks over to his captain who appears a bit lost in thought. I don't want to harm this crew because of my selfish decision. Luffy is thinking along the same lines. But he doesn't want to believe Foosha is beyond saving. There must be some way to rescue them, but how? Should he and Ace just go by themselves and not risk Whitebeard and Shanks's crews? Pops, Ace speaks up. His voice sounds a bit rough from a dry throat. Maybe me and Luke can just go ourselves. The consequences for both crews is really high if you do this. No, Marco smacks Ace's head. Ace rubs the newly formed bruise, hissing through his teeth. That is the dumbest thing you have ever said. It's a guaranteed death wish, Ace. We won't send you over there alone. And that includes you, Luffy. Don't think I didn't see that look on your face. But what else do we do? Luffy semi-whines. Shanks slings his arm over the 14-year-old's shoulders. Actually, I have something that may help us. Or rather a who. Shanks turns to his crew and cups his mouth with his only hand. Yukio, a very tall man, walks to the front of the crowd on the red force. He has long blonde hair tied into a ponytail at the back. He wears a black vest and black long sleeve underneath with blue tight-fit pants. Yeah, Captain? Yukio asks. His voice has a light accent. Shanks waves him down. Come down here. I want to introduce you to everyone. The man jumps down from his ship onto the Moby Dick with utmost grace. He lands softly on his heeled boots right next to his captain. All right, everyone. Shanks throws his arm around Yukio's arms in a buddying way, since he isn't tall enough to reach the man's shoulders. This here is Yukio, and he's a new member of our crew. Nice to meet you all. Yukio greets, bowing respectively. I wonder how long he took your blab before he finally gave in. Marco mutters under his breath. Shanks's ear twitches and he shoots Marco a glare which is completely ignored. Anyway, Shanks continues, again facing Whitebeard. Yukio may be our key to this whole thing. The key. Ace echoes. Yukio nods. That's right. I believe my devil fruit may be of use in this situation. Ace and Luffy exchange glances. What is he talking about? Just then, Thatch bursts through the kitchen door. The aroma of freshly cooked food invades the noses of everyone outside. It's then that everyone realizes how hungry they all are. Ace barely holds Luffy back from sprinting to the source, even though he is also having difficulty holding himself back. How about we take a dinner break and clear our minds? You're probably all hungry. The chef says. Shanks's crew is also welcome to dine with us. We'll be okay over here. Someone shouts from the Red Force, presumably the cook. You might not be able to fit both crews in your galley anyway. Now everyone is looking at the captains, waiting for permission to eat. Luffy breaks out the puppy eyes while Ace continues to stare at the kitchen door while drooling. Go and eat, you brats. Taking a break might just be what everyone needs, says Whitebeard. You guys can eat too, I'll be fine, Shanks says, waving his crew off. A collective sigh of relief floats through the clearing. Everyone then proceeds to flood to their respective galleys for some long-awaited grub. Food. Luffy cheers, about to push and kick and fricking punch his way through everyone to get what he wants. But a hand on the hood of his cloak has Luffy stopping in place. Canopoli. Luffy whines, grabbing at the hand. Let me go. Marco can barely contain the roll of his eyes at the nickname. Slow down, Yoi. The food isn't going anywhere. There is plenty for everyone. You shouldn't be rushing around and risking further aggravating your injuries. Shanks and Ace huddle together, snickering at Marco. Yup, definitely. Totally a mother hen. I bet he's about to lay an egg any second. He probably thinks Luffy is his chick or something. Marco can feel the vein throb in his head. Ace is too much to take every day. And now there is Shanks here too. The pair together is bound to leave Marco with migraines for days. Luffy, you can go eat now. But walk, Marco emphasizes, hoping to get through Luffy's thick skull. Yeah, I got it now, let go. Marco reluctantly lets go of Luffy's hood. The teen walks for probably the first 2 seconds, then catches a whiff of meat, and then breaks the speed limit going to the galley. Why do I even bother? Marco shakes his head at his own stupidity. Oi Luffy, don't eat everything. Ace shouts, chasing his brother. Marco moves to follow them, but pauses beside his captain. Are you coming, Yoi? He asks the remaining captains. Whitebeard shakes his head. Not right now. We've got a few things to talk about concerning the plan Shanks has in mind. Don't worry, you won't be missing anything. Shanks says to Marco. Yukio can fill you in. He probably already guessed what I was thinking. Marco nods, then pushes open the doors that lead to the galley. He immediately dodges a flying beer glass and it crashes into the wall behind him. Marco scans the havoc around him until he spots Yukio. He has apparently already gotten himself a table with Ace, Luffy, Thatch, and Aizu in the far corner of the room. Mind if I join? Marco asks. He slides on the bench next to Luffy on the edge. Marco watches with mixed emotions of awe and disgust seeing Luffy inhale the massive amount of food on his plate with no table manners whatsoever. The laws of physics don't seem to apply to Luffy's mealtime when he manages to stuff multiple drumsticks down his throat and it expands beyond normal size. With a quick glance across from him, Marco sees the exact same thing in the form of Portgas Diaz. He watches as Ace falls asleep on his meal. Marco checks his watch, 13 seconds before he pops up again like nothing happened and starts pigging out all over again. Yukio doesn't look like he's bothered by the brothers' eating habits at all. Then again, it's hard to tell with that serene look on his face. Marco has the feeling that Yukio would still keep the exact same face after smelling one of the old cheeses Thatch keeps in his storage. Aizu tries to eat his meal while averting his gaze from the mess happening around him. He is probably the only one on the crew bothered by the untidiness during mealtime. Thatch just eats like nothing is wrong, just occasionally smacking away Luffy's wandering hand. Aren't you getting anything to eat? Luffy asks, cheeks puffed with food like a chipmunk. Marco shakes his head. No, Yoi, I'm not very hungry. Luffy mumbles something along the lines of, well, more for me, and goes back to stuffing his face. Yukio, you have an idea of how your devil fruit can help us? Marco asks. Yukio finishes chewing his food, then places his fork delicately on his plate, like he's in a fancy restaurant. Everyone at the table stops eating to listen. Even Ace and Luffy slow down their eating pace to hear what he has to say. That's right. I have eaten the wipe fruit, which means I can wipe memories from anybody's mind forever. Wipe fruit, Aizu echoes. He hasn't heard of that devil fruit before. Awesome, Luffy shouts with stars in his eyes. Marco looks calculatingly at Yukio. He has some doubts on how effective his devil fruit may be. Shanks said you thought up a plan, Yoi. Marco prompts him. Yukio nods in confirmation. If I go there, I can make all Marines and nobles forget that Foosha even exists. But there is a certain drawback. Though, Thatch mumbles, my powers only work at close range, so for this to work, we'd have to get everyone grouped in the same area. When I memory wipe someone, they go unconscious for a while, so it should be enough time to get them away from Foosha in that time. Luffy grins in determination. This is great. We can save the island with this. Although Luffy is already swayed at the idea, Ace is a bit skeptical. But there's a problem with this plan. Nobles come and go from that market all of the time. It's impossible to keep track of the ones that already visited. Ace says, then if we can't make them forget, We'll just have to send them a message they'll always remember, Aizu says darkly, sipping his tea. What do you mean by that, Aizu? Thatch asks his friend. We'll send them a message that'll make them stay away from Foosha forever. I'm not exactly sure what we'll do yet, but I think that it will work. The inhabitants of the table all take a bite of their food and escape to their heads for a moment. So, Luffy was it? Yukio asks. Luffy nods. How many Marines are in the village, would you say? Luffy chews on his food thoughtfully, pondering his answer. A lot, he mumbles. Yukio does something with his face that looks only remotely like a cringe. It may be a stretch, but if you all knock enough of them out, I think I can do it. And if you can't? Aizu asks. Yukio sighs. Then give him hell. The bastards deserve it anyway. Whether it's from the prospect of beating Celestial Dragon ass, or the fact that the sophisticated Yukio just swore, the entire table grins cheekily. I want to beat them right now, Luffy says, impatient. He balls his hand into a fist and smacks it on the table. Maybe you can't, Lou, with your new handicap, Ace says teasingly, but there's an undertone of worry. Luffy glares at his brother, hating the fact that he's being underestimated. Handicap? Yukio questions. Luffy lifts up his cloak so Yukio can see, all without breaking his annoyed gaze from Ace. Yukio's eyebrows merely raise a little in surprise, and then he reaches for a napkin and wipes his mouth, back to being indifferent. I've been practicing. Luffy finally speaks up, dropping his cloak back down. I can take anyone down just as easily with only one arm. All right then, if you're so eager to fight, then let's see what you can do, my dear little brother, Ace taunts. Luffy grins confidently, then springs out of his seat and runs out of the galley with them following closely behind. Shanks and Whitebeard pause their discussion when Luffy bursts onto the deck. They watch as he runs to the clearing of the bow and screech to a halt in the middle. Watch this, Ace, he shouts. Everyone stops to watch in anticipation. Luffy throws his arm backwards and it abnormally extends several feet. His devil fruit ability, Mako observes. Suddenly the momentum in Luffy's arm decreases, and it snaps back at a furious speed. Gum gum. His arm flies past his body and smashes into the center mast, creating a fist-sized hole. Pistol. Luffy doesn't waste time going into his second punch, which is doubly as fast as the first, then the third, then the fourth. Next, he spins and demonstrates a series of deadly kicks that leave parts of the ship in ruin. Each hit their target straight on and with great accuracy. The noise draws both crews out of their dining halls and they find themselves transfixed by the spectacle going on. Two crewmates had to jump out of the way when they got too close and almost got knocked off of the ship. Gum gum. Luffy extends and grabs the door handle behind Ace. The fire user feels dread pile up in his stomach. He knows exactly what Luffy's grand finale is going to be. Rocket Luffy's voice drowns in the wind as his body is whipped forward at mind-warping speed. Ace's eyes bulge from their sockets seeing Luffy coming straight at him. Luffy wait, but the warning comes too late, and Luffy tackles Ace in the stomach. Both brothers fly backwards through the door and into the storage closet behind it. Wood splits and shelves fall as they crash. Luffy lands on top of Ace, who is sprawled on the ground, belly up. A bucket rolls by and hits Ace's ankle. Damn it, Luffy. Ace wheezes. He moves to push his brother off when his elbow hits a broomstick and it falls directly on his head. Ace growls in annoyance. See that, Ace? Bet you're impressed, right? Luffy says eagerly, hoping up and down on his forearm. Ace flinches and chokes as his stomach is constantly being abused. Luffy, Ace chokes out. Get off. Oops. Luffy rolls off of Ace, who sighs in relief. Sorry, Ace. Shishishi, you're not sorry, Ace mutters as he sits up. You both alright? Thatch calls from outside. Kiki, Ace calls back. He pulls Luffy and himself upright, then pushes his brother out the door. Once Ace leaves the room, he looks at the damage caused, mouth thinning into a grim line. Marco, the door is broken. I know Yoi. Shanks walks up to the disheveled Luffy and laughs boisterously. You've certainly improved with your devil fruit since I've last seen you. Although that last technique could use a little work. PFT, I didn't even know what you were targeting. Ace scoffs. That was your devil fruit ability we saw, right? Aizu asks. Yeah, I ate the gum fruit. I'm a rubber man. Luffy grabs his cheek and stretches it. Luffy. It's that moment where Anna comes out and snatches Luffy's hand off of his cheek, making it smack back in place. Your hand only just healed. What are you doing smashing it around? And what did I tell you about not training? Your condition still isn't perfect, idiot. She scolds him. Luffy pouts and rubs his cheek. But I'm fine. Do you want to go back to the infirmary for another week? She threatens. Luffy shudders, remembering all the medicine and needles during the harsh days of his recovery. Wait, you were injured, Anchor. You didn't tell me that. Shanks says, a bit saddened. Did someone hurt you? Nobody, I couldn't handle. Luffy shrugs, but Shanks sees through the lie. You're so strong, Luffy. Shanks hugs the teen, much to Ace and Marco's annoyance. He's really proud of how Luffy's turning out. He's maturing really well, yet he has managed to keep that spark of childishness that makes him who he is. That's what Shanks really admires about Luffy. Shanks, Luffy whines. Stop hugging me. That's for kids. He tries to struggle out of his hold, but Shanks holds him even tighter. How do you expect to get away from an enemy if you can't get away from me? Shanks asks playfully, not letting go. Luffy makes a frustrated noise and shoves both of his feet on Shanks's stomach. He pushes hard and manages to pop out of the death hold. Luffy tumbles backwards on the deck, panting from exertion. Shishishi, guess I can escape from an enemy, huh Shanks? He sits up with a smile, but is confused when he sees the big frown upon the captain's face. Shanks, Luffy ... how? Who? Luffy is still confused, but then notices his cloak slipped off from the fall. He looks over to Shanks, whose eyes are barren and ice-cold hollows. Luffy sighs. I lost it when I was escaping Foosha. An admiral burned it off with magma. Luffy says. Shanks grates his teeth together. He knows very well which admiral that is. Luffy frowns at how upset Shanks is. Seeing Ace react to his injury was bad enough. He doesn't want to see another person he cares about sad. You told me yourself, Shanks. It's just an arm. Shanks furrows his eyebrows, like he's trying to recall the words. But then he smiles a little, for Luffy's sake, albeit bitterly. The rage still boils Shanks's blood that he lost his arm so early in his life. I did say that, didn't I? Are you trying to copy me, Anchor? I thought you wanted to be king of the pirates. He jokes weakly. I do. I'm not copying you. Luffy protests. Shanks smiles again, more genuinely this time. I believe you. That's why I gave you that hat after all, to start a new age. And with your devil fruit abilities, you might still be able to fight using what's left of your arm. I can? Luffy asks, tilting his head. That's right. You can extend it, and then harden it with armament haki to make a heavy club. What's armament haki? Shanks shakes his head. I would teach it to you, but we don't have time for you to learn that. Maybe someone can teach it to you later. Luffy still looks confused when Shanks stands and motions to Whitebeard. Alright, now that we've got everyone here, there's something we've got to say. We will be arriving at Foosha Village in approximately 3 days, announces Whitebeard. Shanks has filled me in on his plan with Yukio over here, and we will follow along with it. All commanders go to the meeting room for a debriefing on everything. The 16 commanders all make their way inside the ship on the order. Now, everyone rest up and prepare for battle because it's going to be a big day. With an air of determination, both crews split up to their own devices. Some pirates talk to their mates about cleaning their guns, and others about sparring with fists or swords. Anna walks back to Luffy and grabs him by the back of his shirt. You're coming with me, young man. I need to examine you before you do anything else to open your wounds, Anna says, then proceeds to drag a complaining Luffy to the infirmary with Ace following close behind. Marco watches them leave. Something is still eating at his brain. Marco, you coming? Thatch asks, pausing by the door to the meeting room. No, I'll be back in a minute, Yoi. Marco jogs back to where the D brothers went. He catches Ace right before he goes into the infirmary after Luffy. Ace, the fire user glances back at Marco curiously. He removes his hand from the infirmary door, making it squeak closed. The hallway is dark, with only a small strip of light peeking from under the door. Are you and Luffy actually related? Ace blinks, then frowns. No, we're not blood related. Luffy's dad isn't my shitty one, he says quietly. They can hear Luffy's whining, muffled through the thick door. Do you know who his parents are, Yoi? Marco asks tentatively, afraid to scare Ace out of talking. But Ace looks into Marco's eyes with so much trust, it makes the Phoenix feel honored to have built such a friendship. I don't know who his mom is, but I know that his dad is a world-class criminal like mine. I tried to ask Gramps about it, but that's all I could squeeze out of him. Though he must be a complete ass to leave Luffy behind, so I'm not a fan of the bastard. You both seem like blood brothers anyway. Marco chuckles. Blood doesn't mean shit. Ace says, we're brothers, and that's that. Oh, that needle hurts, Luffy shouts. Ace sighs and pushes the door open, but pauses at the last second. Thanks for listening, Marco. I can always count on you. Then he runs into the infirmary before Marco can see the harsh blush across his face. Marco is left staring at the door, once again bathed in darkness. It's really hard for you to open up, huh, Ace? Marco smirks. With the nagging finally gone, Marco spins on his heels and walks back down the long dark hallway. It's time to get prepared. Line here. Garp taps his desk impatiently. The den mushy in front of him remains dormant. Growling, he dials the number again and listens to the ring drawl on and on and on. The Vice Admiral sits alone in his office, which is not uncommon in these past months. Papers are scattered all over his desk, completely disorganized. His sleeves are rolled up and his jacket is unbuttoned at the top. The dial tone goes off again, and Garp almost throws the snail across the room. But instead he dials the number again, just like he has done the last 100 times. A week. That's how long he has been trying to get a hold of the person on the other end of the den mushy. This person is quite mysterious and secretive, but Garp knows how to get a hold of him. He's Garp's son after all. Garp allows his eyes to wander around his office. He's spent more time in here these last few months than in his entire life. He has even come to memorize every nook and cranny of the space, like how the trim at the bottom right-hand corner is slightly cracked, and that his certificates of honor aren't as evenly aligned as he once thought, and that the coffee stain on his carpet seems more prominent at dusk when the sun shines through his window. The details are important to think about, because if he doesn't, his mind will go directly to all those he let down. A picture frame at the corner of his desk sits on top of some important document he was supposed to look at ages ago. But he doesn't think it's that important. If it's urgent, they will tell him in person. He has no doubt about that. So instead he looks at the picture. 3 boys, 1 with blonde hair, 2 with raven black. The smallest with a scar across his cheek smiles cheekily at the camera. The older one with black hair has a smirk on his face and arms crossed, like he just robbed you and got away with it. The blonde one, about the same age as the older raven, smiles toothily with a gap in his teeth. But there is an air of maturity to his appearance, and it pairs well with his top hat and tail coat. They are all so different, yet you can easily tell how much they adore each other. Geez, Garp wipes a tear away. He thought about it. Crap. Yes, Garp almost falls out of his seat in surprise. He hadn't noticed when the ringing stopped. You brat, why haven't you been picking up the phone? He shouts. I've been busy. The man responds tonelessly. Of course you've been dragging. Garp sighs. Are you damn ready or not? I'm going as fast as I can. Remember that you brought this on, father. Totally monotone. Just hurry up to Foosha and get on with it. Garp hangs up with a slam. He growls and runs a hand through his thinning gray hair. I'm not giving up on you boys without a fight, even if I'm not the one that is doing the fighting. Line here. Dragon listens to the dial tone with a frown. He sighs tiredly against the headache sprouting in his temples. He hangs the phone up just as someone teleports at his side. His hair is an orange red, and he wears all black. The vessel is ready to go on your orders, the mysterious man says. Dragon nods to his subordinate. Depart for Foosha at full speed. I give you full command of the ship from here on out. Yes, sir. The man replies with a salute, then disappears into the air. Line here. The days of preparation came and went fast. Luffy had been training despite Anna's many objections. One puppy dog look later had her caving in reluctantly, but not without a promise to come into her office after every training session. Whitebeard and Shanks had sorted through their strategy carefully and determined exactly what they are going to do. They beat the plan into everybody's skulls so that no one would forget their roles. Now today is the day of the attack. Both crews are standing at the bows of their ships. The Moby Dick is ahead with the Red Force following closely behind. The sun is just starting to set. When they arrive, the market will be closed, so there will be no extra nobles around to cause unnecessary problems. Luffy stands ahead of the crew on the figurehead, watching for that familiar island to appear on the horizon. He clutches his straw hat against his chest, the crunchy material a comfort to his fingertips. So much has happened, Luffy says to himself. He feels like an old man. Flashes of memories zip through his brain. Trevor crushed under debris, the singer guy, Alice's rare kindness, Henry and Lucas disappearing into the blazing forest, Marco observing him from across the market, the relief when he found out they were Whitebeard pirates, and finding Ace. It's been a long journey, but it's finally coming to a close. Luffy places the straw hat on his head with purpose. Time to beat some people into the dust. Next to him, Ace hops up without saying a word. The breeze flows through his black hair, and the orange light makes his freckles stand out. He crosses his arms, standing straight and strong. Are you ready for this? He asks, voice carrying off in the breeze. Luffy exhales loudly, but nods. How about you? Luffy asks after a few seconds. The teen doesn't turn his head immediately, but eventually looks at his older brother. Ace gazes at Luffy with sparkling eyes, then faces the front with a big smirk. Of course, they both breathe in the fresh air and flush out any more nerves. It's time to save their home, and they can't afford to have second doubts. Luffy may have failed to save everyone by himself, but now he has Ace and 2 pirate crews helping. St. Garlo won't even know what hit him. Luffy only hopes that nothing happened to Makino and the bandits while he's been away. Suddenly, Marco swoops down in front of the brothers with flames flickering all over his newly morphed wings. We will be able to see Foosha in a few seconds. Prepare yourselves, Yoi. Everybody tenses in anticipation as the island slowly comes into view. The 2 pirate ships are closing in at an alarming rate. The Marines will no doubt be caught by surprise. Luffy's eyes darken seeing what he has left behind. It's exactly the same, just a little emptier without all the nobles walking around. There's even the burnt remains of Foosha still resting on the outskirts. Apparently it's taking the slaves a while to clean up. Ace grits his teeth at what he sees. It's completely destroyed. He wasn't expecting so much of a damn difference. As they near the island, they can hear sudden shouts of Marines. Suddenly, dozens of grunts pour out of the facility waving their weapons and shouting at the pirates. Off to the side, a Marine is pushing a straggling slave inside the prison. Ace watches as the slave, probably 30 years old, stumbles on the ground. The Marine looks impatient to join his comrades in action, so he loses his temper quickly and strikes the woman with his gun. Ace doesn't listen to Marco as he walks forward. The blood is pounding in his ears and he can't get rid of the images all around him. He almost doesn't notice how his arm snaps out and starts blazing. Geez, guess he's got to make a grand entrance, huh? Thatch comments. Aizu nods, watching the flames in Ace's hand grow to an unfathomable size. Once the fire is a raging inferno around Ace, he whips his arm forward and shouts a command. Hiken. Ace launches a powerful stream of flames toward the mass of Marines. Marco is second to act out. He fully transforms and sends fire missiles from up high. The grunts flee in terror as they strike the earth and an explosion sounds. The Phoenix throws back his head and unleashes a shriek that ignites the fighting spirit in all the pirates. With a single battle cry, they jump off of the ships and attack any Marines they can see. Luffy and Ace leap off of the figurehead into the havoc below. A Marine immediately tries to slice Luffy in half, but Ace fries him before the sword is even up in the air. They land on the sandy ground and set off towards the prison entrance. Marines appear from high and low, blocking their path, but the brothers punch and kick them away like they are only flies. Luffy ducks a sword aiming to chop his head off. He then sweeps his leg through the Marine's feet, making him crash to the ground in a heap. Luffy stands up, panting and covered in dirt. Marco screeches overhead and sends another barrage of flames into the enemy lines. Not too far away, Ben and Yasopp fight alongside Thatch, chopping and shooting grunts that they encounter. Over by the ships, Namor and Haruta assist Yukio in gathering up the unconscious and injured Marines to be mind-wiped later. Oh shit, Ace says over the sounds of the battle, his lip cut and bleeding. Luffy turns to see what Ace is talking about, and his eyes widen into saucers. I've always wanted to get rid of you Yonko scum, sneers Akainu, emerging from the prison. Magma bubbles and pours off of his shoulders. With the flick of a wrist, giant globs of magma shoot towards Whitebeard and red hair pirates and explode. Don't you dare hurt my children. Whitebeard booms from his ship. With a mighty leap, he lands right in front of Akainu and launches a powerful fist right in his gut. The impact sends shockwaves through the battlefield and creates a massive hole in the prison wall. Akainu crumples forward with a sputtered cry before recovering and attempting to send magma in the old captain's face. Come on Luffy, now's our chance. While the Admiral is distracted, Ace and Luffy slip inside the prison with the goal of freeing the people trapped inside. Line here. The citizens of Foosha all sit in their dank cells, exhausted physically and mentally. No one cries anymore. Nobody complains. It has reached that point where everyone has accepted their fate to be trapped in here their entire lives. Makino shuffles against the back wall, lamenting all that has been lost to her. She knows her luck of not being bought is wearing thin. It's only a matter of time when she will be transferred to an even bigger hell than this one. Next to her, Wanda taps her fingers against the wall. Her once perfect nails are chipped horribly and degraded to mere nubs. The bags under her eyes are heavy and dark, and her eyes have lost that touch of mischief. Makino, are you all right? She asks. Her southern drawl is barely noticeable anymore since her voice is so quiet. Just thinking, she whispers. Talking too loud in here will only draw attention to you, and that's the last thing you want in a building full of murderers and kidnappers. You shouldn't be doing that, Han. Your mind's bound to send you to a place you don't want to be. I know, it's just hard sometimes, Makino confesses. Wanda wraps a comforting arm around her and leans her head on Makino's shoulder. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, and what Makino needs right now is comfort, not words. A sudden explosion shakes the building. Makino and Wanda hold each other as the lighting overhead flickers and shakes. What's happening? Someone shouts. Did part of the building collapse? They're finally going to get rid of us. Have mercy. The slaves grow restless as more explosions are heard. Makino and Wanda remain in the corner, trying to block out the noise that adds to their living nightmare. Wait, everyone quiet. I hear voices. Daden shouts. The long weeks of imprisonment have done nothing to hamper her fighting spirit. The chatter immediately stops as everybody strains to listen. Sure enough, two different voices float along the corridor. It should be around here. These damn Marines, they're so persistent. Something about the voices causes Makino's heart to skip a beat. Slowly, she unravels Wanda's arms from her shoulder and walks to the front of the cell. Makino, what is it? Wanda asks worriedly. Makino doesn't answer. She grips the bars until her knuckles turn white. She peers desperately at the end of the hallway, needing to see who belongs to the voices. It's right here. Geez, finally. Tears unconsciously well up in Makino's eyes. It can't be. Two figures round the corner, and to Makino's surprise, it's Ace and Luffy. Line here. Luffy navigates them both through the building, beating up any Marines that get in their way. Ace follows closely behind, eyeing the place with severe distaste. It should be around here, says Luffy. Another Marine pops out of nowhere and springs at Luffy. Luckily, Ace steps in and punches him away before he can get a hit in. They run on, hardly bothered by the slight delay. These damn Marines, they're so persistent. Ace complains, sending another one into the wall. They turn a corner and Luffy's face lights up. It's right here, he exclaims. Geez, finally. Luffy's mouth falls into a deep frown. His pace picks up, and suddenly he's desperate to see the people he's left behind. Ace notices Luffy's subtle change, and charges ahead to check for danger. As soon as Ace rounds the final corner, his eyes widen considerably at what he sees. Dead eyes everywhere. All the people are living in the cells, but they hardly look like they should be breathing. This is truly what giving up looks like. Luffy runs past Ace and attacks the first cage he sees, breaking it to pieces in seconds. Ace shakes his muddled head, then jumps into action, freeing the prisoners. Gum, pistol. Luffy blasts the door off of bars, creating a cloud of dust around their feet. The people inside the cell stand back with wide eyes, clutching their loved ones and themselves. Come on, we're breaking you out. Luffy beckons them and grins. Slowly, smiles start to grow on their faces, and then they push past one another to get out. Each one that passes Luffy shakes his hand and says deep thank yous. Over at the other cells, people have gathered around Ace and are thanking him, much to his embarrassment. Daden emerges from a cell and squeezes the poor commander to death, only to realize exactly what she's doing, and lets go with a blush and a snappy comment. Suddenly, Luffy is tackled into a hug that sends him stumbling backwards. The person's shoulders shake with sobs and they clutch him like he's the most precious thing in the world. You're alive. I don't believe it. Luffy looks up and gasps in relief when he realizes it's Makino. She looks a little rough around the edges, but she's still the same woman he's come to know. Makino, you're still here, he exclaims, sinking into her embrace. She still manages to smell homey to him. Me. She pulls back to look at his face and take in every detail. We all thought you were dead. That admiral brought back your arm. Luffy finishes, flashing his stump. Makino's hands fly to her mouth and she gasps sympathetically. Oh, Luffy-kun. She reaches out and hugs him again, stroking the back of his hair. I know it might be a silly question, but are you okay? She asks. Luffy chuckles a little. I'm okay, now that I know you're all right. Makino sobs into his head again. Luffy stands there, bearing her weight for the time being. Happy to see you're still alive and kicking, kiddo. There. Luffy gasps. He runs up and tackles the short man into a hug. Whoop Slap stiffens in surprise. He has never been one for physical contact. I'm sorry about your arm, boyo. I would normally blame those damn pirates for their influence, but now it's clearly the Marines that are at fault. Luffy shrugs. I'll be okay. I'll just train and get stronger. Soon I'll be just the same as I would have been with 2 arms, he says. Whoop Slap smiles and nods in approval. Ace opens yet another cage that catches the mayor's attention. Excuse me, there are some citizens I need to attend to. He bows slightly, then runs straight to an old man holding a child. Luffy, both Makino and the teen straighten up when Daden comes stomping up to them with a raised fist. You brat, we all thought you were dead. Luffy flinches a little, thinking she's going to hit him, but instead she shoves her hand on his hat. Boy, I can't see. Luffy tries to push it off. Thank goodness you're alive. Luffy's struggles weaken. As soon as Daden removes her hand, he peeks up at her. She quickly wipes away any evidence of weakness on her face before he has a good look. Luffy laughs out loud. Shishishi, thanks old hag. Who are you calling old hag, brat? Luffy laughs again just as another blast strikes the building. Ace runs next to Luffy, panting harshly. We've got to get out of here, he tells them. This place is going to come down sooner than we plan. Makino pulls Ace down into a hug. His face immediately turns red as a beet, and he struggles to come to terms that he was caught by surprise. Thank you for coming, Ace-kun. I'm so glad you're safe, she whispers in his ear. Ace's face turns even more red, if possible. You're welcome. I can't just let my home be destroyed, Ace says back, allowing her to give him some affection. Makino chuckles and releases him, squeezing his shoulder. Come on everyone, follow me, Luffy shouts. The ex-slaves cheer so loud, it almost drowns out the sounds of battle raging outside. With Ace and Luffy leading the charge, they all storm out. Chunks of wall tumble down from the sides and the ground quakes almost constantly. But the villagers do not fear the havoc around them. They have seen death and traveled through hell. A few extra steps don't faze them. Up ahead is the large opening that is their freedom. All of a sudden, a bullet slices through the air and misses Luffy's head by a millimeter. It's enough of a shock to make the entire group stop in place. Ace fumes when he looks at the bastard in front of them that has tried to hurt his brother for a second time. Don't move another inch, or I will blow your disgusting faces off your bodies. It's St. Garlo, or at least Luffy thinks it's St. Garlo. The celestial dragon looks crazed and desperate. His dome that once prevented him from breathing the same air as them is cracked, and a massive chunk is missing from the side. In his hand is a pistol decorated in solid gold, pointing at them and smoking at the barrel from when he just fired a shot. You lot aren't going anywhere. You're mine. You belong to me, you slaves. Get back in your cages. Ace growls and moves forward, ready to break his face. Hands, spine, legs, ECT. Stop. Take another step forward and I blow her head off. St. Garlo screeches, moving his pistol in Makino's direction. Ace stops, but glares at him. St. Garlo turns his gaze away from Ace, obviously terrified of him. He waves his gun at them like he's herding cattle. Go. You've already caused enough trouble here. Miserable rodents. I'm going to whip all of you when this little rebellion is over. I don't think so. St. Garlo spins around as fast as his pudgy body will allow. Who? I don't think you even want to know, buddy. His eyes are cold slits, and he twirls his sword like it's a baton. Shanks, Luffy exclaims. The group gasps in excitement seeing the red-haired pirate again. Shanks, the high noble rolls the name around his mouth distastefully. You're the captain of the pirate crew that ruined my slave market. That's right. Got something you want to tell me? Shanks tilts his head eerily. St. Garlo's face turns red with anger. You imbecile. I will execute you right here. He raises his pistol and aims for Shanks's head. The captain only narrows his eyes and bends his knees. Die. But before the shot can ring out, a fist plows through St. Garlo's glass dome and lands a heavy blow to his face. St. Garlo hits the ground with a thud, his face bloodied and swelled beyond normal. A small pained, resigned sound escapes his bloodied lips. Everyone looks at Makino, who wipes her bloody knuckles off on her skirt. Bastard, she spits. There's collective silence, and then the villagers start cheering as they race ahead. Wanda grabs Makino's hand, laughing, and together they follow the rest. Shanks stands there, mouth open in shock, marveling at the woman. Why can't he bring himself to look away from her? He doesn't remember seeing that golden halo around her head earlier. Come on, Shanks. You can't stand there forever. Luffy yells at him, yanking on his sleeve. Shanks allows himself to be pulled along in a slight daze. Badass, he whispers. Ace sticks his head out and scans around the massive opening in the wall. When it's clear, he motions everyone to follow outside. One by one, the villagers file out and run towards the forest on Ace's instructions. Daden leads them, more familiar with the forest than anyone else there. Shanks leans over and picks a child up, holding him over the part of the wall that is too tall for him to climb. The mother takes her child, thanks Shanks profusely, then runs into the forest. Soon enough, everyone is out of the complex and running up the slope to the forest. Let's make sure they get there safe and sound, Ace tells his brother. Luffy nods and turns to tell Shanks, I think you two will be fine on your own. I'm going to go help my crew on the battlefield. Shanks says. Sure enough, more Marines appear from the direction of Low Town, no doubt called up to assist in the fight. All right, see you later, Shanks, Luffy says. Shanks grins in return, then leaps away with his black cloak billowing in the wind. Shall we destroy this pest that has invaded Foosha? Ace asks his brother, sounding prestigious. Luffy nods, trying his best to look professional and snooty. I believe we should. But first, Luffy runs back into the building and grabs the unconscious celestial dragon. He drags him back outside, then throws him to the side and out of the way. The body merely splays on the ground in a lump. Both brothers pretend not to hear the moan of pain from said lump. We should have left him in there. Ace scowls. We need Yukio to mind wipe him, remember? Now let's do this. I've been waiting to destroy this damn thing since forever. Ace nods, a malicious grin spreading across his face. They back up a few paces from the crumbling prison. Luffy frowns in concentration, stance going into attack mode. Gum, Gatling. Luffy sends a barrage of quick and powerful punches toward the building. More foundation instantly crumbles under the impact, and soon enough, the building looks like it can tumble over with just the blow of the wind. Come on, Ace shouts. They make their way up the slope and up to a ledge overlooking Foosha. The only person waiting up there is Makino. Where did They all went to Daden's hut. Don't worry, Luffy-kun. Both brothers sigh in relief. I'm going to join them for the time being. Makino grabs both of their faces and delivers a kiss on their cheeks. Please be safe, my boys. And thank you for all you've done for us, she says tenderly, making Ace and Luffy's hearts warm up. Then she runs back into the forest and after the rest of the group. They both smile in her absence, although Ace's face is a little red. The crashing of swords brings them back to reality, and they turn to overlook the battle with frowns on their faces. There's still someone we have to deal with, Ace says darkly. Sabo's dad, Luffy responds. Ace nods in confirmation. This will never end with that guy still around. When I find him, I'm gonna beat his ass into next day for what he did to you and everyone. Ace steps forward on the ledge. His arm lights up in flames and he quickly draws a T-shape in the air, creating a fire cross. Jujika, he shouts, sending the cross flying straight for the prison. As soon as it hits, the building explodes and completely obliterates. Smoke and dust blow across the clearing, choking nearby Marines. Ace and Luffy stand alone witnessing the scene. Pieces of flaming rubble rain down from above, but none strike the brothers. They watch as the dust settles and nothing but debris remains. The hard work and pain that it took to construct this building is no longer existent. Neither is any evidence of the horrors that have happened inside. Luffy watches it all with blank eyes. He doesn't feel happy, exactly, just numb. It should have never existed. And now they will have to work harder to get everything back to normal. Howls of victory float up from the battle. Marco flies over them and screeches in victory. The demolition was a signal to both crews that the brothers fulfilled their part of the plan. Let's go, Lou, Ace says softly, squeezing his brother's hand. Luffy nods, forcing his eyes away. They sprint down the slope past unconscious Marines and burning patches towards the Moby Dick. Nearby, Anna applies first aid to a red-hair pirate who got caught by surprise. As Ace looks around, he notices that the battle is in their favor. In fact, only a few straggling Marines remain trying to take down as many pirates as they can before they go down themselves. It has been an uneven fight for them. They are hopelessly overwhelmed by the sheer skill, preparation, and numbers from the two crews. The only one really leading the Marines on is Akainu. He and Whitebeard are still going strong. Both parties sport different injuries, but it's hard to tell who is getting more exhausted. Marco tries to help out a little by sending in flamethrowers, but they are easily negated by Akainu's magma powers. There's Thatch over there, Ace says through pants. The brothers run over to where their friend is. He's got a bruise on the side of his head, but that seems to be his only notable injury. Guys, I saw what you did to the building. It was epic, Thatch exclaims, then laughs. Is there any more major issues going on? Ace asks. Thatch shakes his head. No, it's just Akainu that's the biggie. Pop said he can handle it on his own, but I don't know. Whitebeard. All heads turn towards the main battle, happening in the center of Foosha. Akainu's face is the definition of rage. Spit flies from his mouth after every attack, and he growls even louder when Whitebeard manages to block or evade them. This ends now, Akainu screams. He coats his hands into giant bubbling magma fists and launches himself forward at the pirate captain. Whitebeard frowns and pulls his own fist back, creating a small sphere around it. Pops, Thatch, and Ace yell, concerned for their captain's safety. Marco makes a shrill call from his bird form, unable to interfere. The rest of the crew watches in horror, screaming at their captain to dodge. Akainu's attack is fast. It will strike before Whitebeard even has a chance to conjure his. But right as the fist nears his stomach, Shanks appears and slices the magma hand off with his sword. It won't take long for the arm to regenerate, but it's enough time for Whitebeard to strike back. The sphere wavers as it's being filled with concentrated energy. Whitebeard raises his fist over his head, then brings it down hard on Akainu's head. Kabutori, he shouts. Akainu crashes into the ground as explosions go off from the sphere onto his head. The extra force buries the Admiral deeper and deeper into the rubble until he moves no more. Panting, Whitebeard slowly raises his fist from the crater he created. Both captains look down at their fallen enemy to check if he is properly unconscious. All Marines and pirates have stopped fighting to see the outcome of the battle. With the fist that he had used to strike down his enemy, Whitebeard raises it in the air victoriously. Cheers erupt all around the grounds, while the remaining Marines merely raise their hands in surrender. Get up. I said get up. All heads turn to the one person in support of the Admiral. What are you doing? You're supposed to be an Admiral, you idiot. Get up and kill them. Luffy and Ace glare daggers at the man. Luffy digs his fingernails into his palm, barely suppressing the urge to knock his brains out. Outlook, Ace spits out. The noble leers at the brothers and turns his nose up in disgust. You're still as revolting as I remember. Enjoy my gift, little one. Outlook asks, gesturing to the burnt village. Luffy's glare hardens and he vibrates in anger. You bastard. Luffy grits. Well, it's your fault. You both took away my blood heir. And for what? To live in a trash heap with devil children. Outlook's voice turns shrill with disbelief. Ace steps in front of his brother, as if trying to shield him from the words. Don't you dare dishonor Sabo's choices, and Luffy is not a devil child. So you better shut the hell up before I make you. Ace threatens, cracking his knuckles. He may not be a devil child, but you are. Outlook sounds smug. Ace's eyes widen. You don't. That's right, Portgas. I figured out just who you are. Should I call you by your real name instead? He spits and it lands on Ace's bare dirt log chest. See, you have no power against me. No one does. And now, I'm going to make that good-for-nothing Admiral get up and crush you devil children so hard you'll be begging me. Burn in hell, yoy. Marco drops down from the sky in hybrid form with talons extended and kicks Outlook hard in the spine, sending him skidding across the ground. He growls in outrage as he struggles and fails to get up. Never ever talk about them like that again, yoy, or I'll show you what a real devil looks like, you bastard. Marco snaps, seething in rage. This self-proclaimed know-it-all almost exposed Ace's biggest secret, and he has the nerve to taunt him about it and threaten them. And, oh, Marco will not allow it, not for a second. Oh, you vermin, who do you think you are? Outlook shouts from the ground, enraged. Flames spark off of Marco's shoulders and he moves to finish the noble off. Marco, wait. The phoenix stops, and his blazing aqua blue eyes lock on Ace's gray ones. Thanks for being an overprotective hen and all, but we want to do this. Marco stares at his brother, feeling uncertain. But seeing the same passionate fire burning in Ace's irises makes him realize who really needs to handle the noble. So Marco sighs and extinguishes the flames on his shoulders. Ace smiles at his friend and pats his shoulder as he walks past him. Thanks again, Marco. Marco smiles back at him and steps out of the way. Ace and Luffy loom over Outlook, who desperately tries to scramble up and gain some semblance of ground. You're a disgrace. You treated Sabo like shit and expected him to live by your rules. Ace snarls. And you destroyed our village and hurt all my friends in it. We're going to make you pay. If Luffy's looks could kill, Outlook would have died 1,000 times. Why you wouldn't dare. The noble stutters, shuffling backwards. His fancy tailcoat gets smeared with mud and he has lost a shoe. Oh, Ace's arm lights on fire. Outlook gasps in horror. I think we would. Ace and Luffy exchange glances, then leap forwards and punch him in the face. Outlook reels back from the force, but Ace pulls him back by his scorched tie while Luffy kicks him in the stomach. Outlook kneels over in pain, coughing up fluids. This is for Foosha. Luffy punches him in the face again. This is for Sabo. A few teeth fly. And this is for all the shit that you've caused. This punch sends Outlook rolling across the clearing. His leg catches a piece of concrete and he flips in midair. Back. Outlook's back smacks against a tree. His spine shudders in pain and he chokes, then slides to the ground unconscious. The brothers glare at their miserable tormentor. Ace puts his arm around Luffy and squeezes his shoulder. They remain there, panting and staring, but it doesn't look like Outlook will move anytime soon. Luffy's gaze flicks around all that's left of Foosha. Nothing. He can't help but wonder, how long will it take for someone else to come along and do the exact same thing? Will the inhabitants of the village all move away? Is Foosha already non-existent? Hey Lou, Ace moves in Luffy's field of vision. It's over now, so just let it all go, he says, squeezing Luffy's shoulder reassuringly. Luffy blinks. He looks at all the pirates scattered around the battlefield, laughing and smacking each other's backs. It's not only Foosha's victory, but it's theirs too, Luffy realizes. Luffy closes his eyes, inhales, then exhales shakily, slowly easing the tension from his shoulders. It is Hun, Luffy whispers, lip trembling. Quickly he shakes his head and wipes his eyes. Ace smiles fondly and knocks Luffy's hat off to ruffle his hair. Whitebeard smiles at the pair while Anna pokes at his injuries. He beckons Marco over with his giant finger. Yeah, Pops? Marco asks, flying beside him with his flaming blue wings. Go find those villagers and tell them that it is safe to return. Marco nods and flies to the forest. Whitebeard settles down on the dirt ground, trying to get a little comfortable. All right, everyone, listen here. The pirates make their way from different corners of Foosha to the giant captain. Shanks stands next to him, wiping down his sword. I know how much you all want to party. Believe me when I say there is nothing more I would rather do at this moment. Scattered chuckles go through the crowd. But our job is not yet finished. We need to gather every Marine, unconscious or not, and bring them to Yukio. This is a vital step for this plan to succeed, and it needs to be done quickly. Understand? The pirates cry out their affirmative and run around, grabbing Marines from near and far. Put them around here, yes. Remember, we have to get them out of here within the hour of mind wiping. Arrange the unconscious ones in the front side by side, like that, yes. Yukio directs both crews with smooth efficiency. Ace wonders if he had been a captain in his past life. The many unconscious Marines are lined side by side in the front row. Any weapons are stolen or discarded, leaving them defenseless. The back row is filled with the Marines that are awake. Their hands are bound by rope that in return is tied to a singular rope that runs through each spine. The train of Marines glance nervously between the pirates around them and their fallen leader amongst the line of unconscious and defeated. The sound of murmuring draws attention, and soon all of the ex-slaves emerge from the forest. They observe their surroundings with big eyes, taking in the destruction all around them, and more precisely the prison. It's gone. A lady gasps. Oh, thank the heavens. A man sobs. More tears of relief are shed in the group. The pirates leave them alone, offering silent condolences to all they have lost. Aizu bends down to pick up a marine sword when there is a tug on his kimono. He glances to his side curiously to see a little girl in scruffy clothing. She shuffles her feet and looks to her mother nervously. The mother smiles and nods in encouragement. Thank you for saving us from the meanies. They burnt our house and my special teddy bear. I was so sad, but now I'm really happy because you helped my mom and me. So thank you. The girl grins up at Aizu, albeit a little shyly. Aizu blinks down at her, then lifts his hands to his mouth to contain his overwhelmed feelings. Once he composed himself, he crouches down to her eye level and smiles. It was no problem at all. But if you really want to thank us, go up to every pirate who fought here and give them a big thank you. Can you do that? The girl's eyes widen considerably and she nods enthusiastically, making Aizu chuckle. Yes, I can, miss. You can count on me. Aizu almost corrects the girl, but lets it slide for the time being. Instead, he picks her up and tugs on the hem of her dress. Dear me, you're in dire need of a change in wardrobe, my dear. The girl giggles. What is your name? Layla, she mumbles, ducking her head into her shoulder. Well, Layla, I think I should make you a new dress myself, Aizu says softly, like it's some sort of big secret. The girl gasps and her head shoots up, shyness temporarily forgotten. Really? She breathes. Layla twists in Aizu's arms to look at her mother. Mommy, this nice lady says she'll make me new clothes. Marco watches fondly as the mother walks up to Aizu and starts building a conversation with him. To the Phoenix's left, a short old man with a walking stick hobbles up to him. Hello, sir. My name is Whoop Slap, the mayor of Foosha. He extends a hand in greeting, which Marco accepts with a brief shake. Hello, Yoi. I'm Marco, 1st Division Commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, Marco says calmly. Whoop Slap fiddles with his glasses, looking uncomfortable all of a sudden. I hate pirates, he admits. Marco raises an eyebrow. Does this man remember who he's talking to? Ever since Red Hair came to our village, I've loathed all the trouble they carry along with them. I was convinced they were terrible, irresponsible lowlifes who only want to drink sake and create havoc. Then why are you telling this to a pirate? Marco asks. He's not mad, merely curious. Whoop Slap meets Marco's eyes. He looks somewhat guilty. I'm telling you this because I owe it to you. You've changed my mind by how you've acted. Not only with your actions here today, but you actually listened to Luffy and decided to help him. That itself gains my respect, and I humbly thank you and your crew for all you've done for us. Whoop Slap bows deeply. You don't have to bow. It's only our responsibility to take care of our own. Marco responds. Whoop Slap raises, smiling. Thank you. Now that we have this matter settled, I'd like you to meet the rest of our village. Whoop Slap pushes a flustered Marco over to the citizens of Foosha, who immediately surround him and say their share of thanks. Haha, the hen is getting mobbed. Ace mocks from far away, watching his friend slowly being eaten up by the crowd. The Ace, talking about Pineapple Head makes me hungry. Can we eat something soon? Luffy complains, pulling on Ace's arm. Ace moves the appendage away. Not now, Lou, we've still got stuff to do. But alas, Luffy, Ace, the brothers turn around, only to get tackled by a hug. Green shiny hair waves in their eyes and they instantly relax. Thank goodness you're still alright. We're fine, Makino. We're strong, Luffy exclaims, breaking away and flexing his skinny arm. Makino chuckles into her hand that is still a little stained with red. I see that. Now where is Whitebeard-san and Shanks? I need to thank them for all the help they've given us. Ace points over her shoulder. They're just over there. Pops is getting checked out by the nurses, but he won't mind seeing you. Thank you, Ace. You boys get checked out too. And don't pretend like you haven't hurt yourselves. When I get back, I expect to see new bandages on you. Makino eyes them both condescendingly. All right. Yes, Makino. Ace and Luffy sigh out. She smiles and walks over to the two captains. They watch with lingering smiles as Makino says something to Whitebeard, who chuckles in return. Shanks has flowers around his head as he gazes at her from beside the giant captain. Okay, I believe that is all the Marines. Everybody take a step back so you are not affected, Yukio says, splaying his palms out. The pirates in the vicinity shift back to form a large semicircle around the Marines. Luffy watches in wonder as Yukio makes odd finger gestures in a specific order. When he finishes the sequence, he hums an indistinguishable word and then repeats the hand gestures. Except, this time his hands glow in neon blue. The beautiful lights highlight his face and make it appear as though he is hollow. Sutsumamasu, Yukio mumbles. The lights from his hands float up in the air and weave around the bodies in front of him, including the Admiral and Celestial Dragon. The Marines that are awake struggle against their binds, afraid to touch the soft-looking light, but their efforts are in vain, and soon enough their eyes are drooping shut. Yukio makes another set of hand gestures using much more effort than the other two. Sweat appears on his brow and he wipes it away hastily. Yukio, you okay? Yasop asks him. Yukio nods jerkily. Yes, I just haven't done this ... with so many people before. He grits. His devil fruit has searched and claimed all memories that belong to this village and this day. However, the challenge is trying to hold on to all of them before they can escape his next command. Yukio clamps his eyes shut and focuses his breathing. It's now or never. Shasensa Simasu, he yells. In an instant, the blue lights diffuse into each different body. Yukio cries out in pain as each memory is sliced and disposed of. The standing Marines slump to the ground in a heap. After several long agonizing minutes, the blue light diffuses back into the open and flows back into Yukio. When the last of the blue light returns to his hands, the devil fruit user falls to his knees, panting. Ben and Yasop are immediately right there with some water and a helping hand. Are you okay, Yukio? Ben asks, handing him the water. Yukio gulps it down greedily, not caring of the liquid spills on his neat clothes. Yes I am. Just need a little rest is all. He pants in his odd accent. You were great, Yukio. Took it like a real champ. Lucky Roo exclaims, slapping Yukio on the back. The tall man grimaces a little as some water spills out of his lips and onto his chest. Thank you, but now we've got to get these Marines off this island as fast as possible. What location did we decide on again? He asks. Shazu, the 3rd Division commander, pulls out a map and examines it. Here, he points, Shimitsuki Village, just south of here. When they arrive there they will be confused at most. But then they should just leave and get on with their days. Yasop says. All right. Yukio grimaces as he stands up. Let's load them up on the lifeboats. Wait. All eyes turn to Luffy, who is walking along the Marines and checking every single one. His eyes are blown open and he looks worried. At first, Ace looks as confused as the others, but then throws his head back with his hands flying to his eyes. He's not here. He mumbles through his hands. The pirates exchange confused glances. Who isn't Yoi? Marco asks, joining them. Luffy kicks the ground, startling everyone in the vicinity. Outlook, he spits out. Oh shit. Everyone looked to where he could have escaped to. Marco orders. The pirates split up in different search parties. Ace checks the place where Outlook last was, only to find a small puddle of blood and a gold pocket watch. What is happening, my son? Whitebeard asks Marco. We appear to have an escapee, he tells his captain, and we don't know where he is. Whitebeard frowns and stands up, disturbing the medical equipment that has been attached to him. We can't have that. One person exposing what has happened today will ruin everything. Check near the forest, he orders. Marco nods and moves in that direction. I see him. I see him. All heads turn towards the port. Whitebeard limps up to his most trusted lookout, who is perched on a flagpole with a telescope in hand. Where Calvin? Ace asks, moving below him. Luffy bounces anxiously by his brother's side. Out on the sea. He's on a ship, he replies, twisting his telescope into better focus. A feeling of dread pits in their stomachs. He's too far away. It's impossible to catch him by ship. He's going to get away. No, Luffy panics. All of this hard work can't possibly be for nothing. Marco, Whitebeard booms. The situation is growing desperate as their only chance of succession is floating away. Marco understands the silent command and stomps his foot, getting ready to transform and pursue the noble. Hold on a second, Calvin shouts, wobbling dangerously from his perch. What is it? Shanks demands impatiently. There's another ship approaching him. We can't let that happen. He's going to tell them everything. Marco, a bright sphere of fire appears in the horizon, exactly where Outlook's ship is. A sonic boom flies across the water, creating a wave and a strong gust of wind. The wind buffets the observing audience. Ace's hat flies back on his neck and his raven hair whips around wildly. Calvin removes the telescope from his eye, mouth agape. Slowly, the explosion visuals fade, and not even a breath of smoke remains. It is a very odd sight, and it leaves the pirates confused. What happened? Thatch asks, voice laced in disbelief. Calvin raises the telescope back on his eye reluctantly. It's ... gone. He says softly, like he's afraid he's made a mistake. Gone? What about the other ship? Lucky Roo asks, taking a bite of the meat leg he's acquired. It's still there. I think they've blown his ship into oblivion. Calvin gasps, mind falling to imagination rather than logic. That can't be right. It's impossible, Yoi. Marco says, eyes narrowing. Flames climb his leg, starting a transformation. I'm going to go check what happened. Is anyone missing a beaten noble? Swords are drawn and guns cock as everyone whips around to face the intruder. He stands there plain as day, with Outlook slumped down below him, unconscious and free of burn injuries. The pirates don't understand how he has gotten here, but they don't like being taken by surprise. It's an oddity that no one had sensed his presence prior to his arrival. But here he is, magically appearing out of nowhere to the heart of the enemy. Whitebeard and Shanks observe the man calmly, but are dimly aware they cannot let him leave and risk exposing their secret. The man only clicks his tongue at their hostility. He eyes the weapons around him in distaste, then shrugs. Maybe I was being a bit too sudden. Let me start over. He grabs Outlook by the shoulder and pushes him forward to Yukio's feet. Here you go. I caught him for you guys. Was that your ship out there, Yoi? Marco asks, not taking his eyes off the mysterious man. That's right. My associates are still there right now. It's only me with you all, he answers, flipping a piece of red hair back. Shanks frowns and steps forward. He places the tip of his sword on the man's neck. Who are you? Shanks demands in a flat tone. The cool steel presses further into the warm skin of the man's jugular. I'm afraid I can't tell you that. He sounds truly apologetic. All I can ask is for you to trust me that I won't say a word about anything that has happened today. Trust you? How are we supposed to trust you when we don't even know who you are? Ace asks bitterly, his lip rising into a snarl. For some reason, the man brightens up. Actually, I believe there is one person here who knows me, though I hope he hasn't forgotten about the person who saved his life, he says with a grand smile. He glances to the side, right beside Ace. Singer guy. Luffy gasps. Shanks lowers his weapon and raises his brow at the teen. The man smiles even wider and hums a little tune. That's right. But I thought I told you to call me something else. Luffy shrugs and murmurs how he forgot. Well, it doesn't matter. You can call me whatever you want. Oi, Lou, you know this guy? Ace asks his brother, nudging him. Luffy nods and grins in a D shape. Yeah, when I first escaped from Foosha, he gave me money for medicine and food. Luffy chuckles and approaches the singer guy, bouncing lightly on his feet. You're a lot more energetic than I remember. He ruffles Luffy's hair. I'm glad to see you're well taken care of. Luffy chuckles and rubs a finger under his nose. The singer's face turns serious all of a sudden. He meets the gaze of everyone around him, until he lands on Whitebeard and Shanks. Look, you may find it very hard to trust me, but you must believe that I mean you no harm. I brought this noble back for you to get rid of his memories. This island means a lot to my boss, and we don't want any more tragedy to happen to it. So please, just accept my peace offering and leave it at that. The two Yonko analyze the man. He doesn't feel like the type to be deceitful. His arguments seem to be truthful. Also, based off of his past experience with Luffy, he sounds like a kind sort, and anyone on Luffy's good checklist is on Shanks's too. Whitebeard also appreciates the fact that he had helped Luffy in a time of dire need. He only wonders one thing. You must want something in return. What is it, brat? He asks. Singer guy waves his hands in denial. No. He chuckles, like it's the funniest joke he's ever heard. I don't want anything in return. Just let me deal with the Marines when you finish mind wiping them. So you do want something. Thatch leers. It's entirely for your benefit. I get rid of them. You don't have to deal with them anymore. Plus, I think your time is running out, he says, tapping his watch. Yukio wraps his arms around his shaking form. He's exhausted. The amount of memories is too much for his body to handle. But if he has to fit in one more, so be it. He's not wrong. We won't have time to send them over to the nearest island, Yukio says, not breaking eye contact with their guest. But I don't see how he can take them away in under an hour. That's the question, isn't it? It's my devil fruit. I could go into details about it, but it's a little too complicated to explain right now. Maybe you can just call it teleportation? He tells them, making air quotation marks. Ace still looks skeptical. It's hard to trust this guy who is so full of secrets, but he's offering a way out. And Luffy trusts him. Is it really all right for them to just hand everything over to a complete stranger? Please, Giant Asen. He's a great guy. You can trust him. Luffy insists, giving Whitebeard puppy dog eyes. Whitebeard meets them head on, keeping a neutral expression. You're sure about this, brat? Luffy nods, completely serious. I am. Whitebeard stares at Luffy for a little longer, then blinks at the singer guy. All right then, we shall accept your help. The singer guy grins in victory. However, if you do anything to betray this group, you shall answer to me. He leans forward, casting an ominous shadow overhead. Shishishi, he won't, because he's a good guy, Luffy says cheerily, bouncing around the man. The pirates swallow their captain's decision, but can't help feeling wary. Shanks accepts him silently, keeping an eye out for any wrong moves. You can never be too careful around the unpredictable. Perfect. I'm glad we've come to an agreement. Singer guy grins and bows with flourish. You won't regret this. We better not. Ace growls. I guess I'll start on him now. Yukio sighs, dropping down to his knees next to Outlook's body. Are you sure you're still up for this, Yukio? Shanks asks him, concerned for his health. Yukio nods, hovering his hands over the body. I will only require a nap and a bottle of sake afterwards. He jokes. Shanks smiles and pats him on the back. I'll take care of everything. Yukio's smile melts into a frown of concentration and he closes his eyes. Yukio, Ace says quietly, afraid to disturb him. Yukio merely hums in question. Can you get rid of his memories of Luffy and I? Yukio smirks. I said I'd take care of it, didn't I? Ace smiles and steps back in line with his brother. He wraps his arms around Luffy's waist and rests his head on the teens. Yukio does his hand gestures and mumbles the opening words, Tsutsumamasu. As the familiar blue glow illuminates the clearing, Luffy leans back into Ace. Why didn't you ask him to take away his memories of Sabo? He asks, turning his doe-eyed gaze up to his brothers. Even if he forgot, his family wouldn't have. Besides, he must feel some guilt for Sabo's death. We shouldn't take that away from him. He deserves every ounce he gets. Ace snorts, burying his nose in Luffy's soft raven hair. Luffy focuses back on the ceremony, biting the inside of his cheek in thought. Shasen sa simasu, Yukio shouts. This time, when the blue light flows inside, Yukio doesn't seem nearly as pain. It takes only a few seconds for the memories to be removed. Luffy finds it kind of sad. Months, years worth of memories wiped out in a moment. All done, Yukio says. His complexion looks slightly paler, but he doesn't seem any worse off than before. Good. Now that this is done, I will be taking my souvenirs. The singer guy snaps his fingers, and suddenly every marine and noble disappears into thin air. just like the ship, Calvin mumbles, tightening his grip on his telescope. Where did you put them, Yoy? Marco asks. In their own comfy beds. Well, they will be there. For now, they are being held someplace I am not inclined to tell you about. After a few glares from the crowd, he chuckles nervously. But there's no need to worry. When they wake up, they will believe the destruction here was caused by someone else entirely. That is, if they even bother caring about this incident in the future. It's more for the nobles who hope to make future purchases here. They will not want to come around here after the news is spread. And who exactly will be taking responsibility for this? Yasop asks, gesturing to everything. The collapsed building, burning patches of ground, rubble and blood everywhere you turn. Yukio chuckles mischievously. Why, the Revolutionary Army, of course. We do this sort of thing all the time. You're from the Revolutionary Army? Thatch asks in disbelief. His question burns through the heads of everyone present. Yes, I am. Now, I would love to stay here and play a round of 20 questions with you all, but I've got to get going before my new guests wake up. He looks over to Luffy and winks. See you later, Luffy, future king of the pirates. Not even a sound is made when he disappears. A small breeze flows through Luffy's hair and tickles Ace's nose, making him sneeze. Did I even tell him my name before? Yo, Luffy, says Haruta, looking nervous. Luffy blinks back to her in question. I know you said you trust him, but will he really keep his word? He will, Luffy replies without an ounce of doubt. Singer guy gave me food, and anyone who gives me food is a good guy. Everyone chuckles while Ace groans, shoving Luffy's giggling head to the side. Whitebeard-san. Makino asks. Yes, Makino. The woman fiddles with the folds of her skirt. What happens now? The clearing falls into silence. All pirates and citizens stare up at Whitebeard expectantly. I think it's obvious. Shanks smirks knowingly. He slowly withdraws the bottle of sake from his pocket. Whitebeard nods, and a grin spreads across his face. We drink. Cheers erupt and people hug. Several pirates bring over sake from their ships and share them with everyone. The chefs prepare food for the ex-slaves, which leaves them all in tears. Thatch would be lying if he said he didn't gain several girlfriends that night. Anna and the nurses perform checkups on every pirate and Foosha citizen. They are happy to say that no one will be perishing anytime soon. They party all night, chugging back sake and exchanging stories of adventure. Whitebeard offers to help with repairs and shelters until Foosha is back to being habitable. The citizens are beyond grateful and can't seem to stop thanking the pirates all night. The red hair pirates leave during the party, having affairs to do somewhere else. Shanks is confident that Luffy and the others are in good hands, and departs with a deep goodbye to everyone in the village. He tells them that if something else happens, he will come rushing back to help, no matter what. Remember our promise, Anchor. Shanks tells Luffy when they are alone on the dock. The small glittering waves swish against the wood. I'll never forget it, Luffy says with a grand smile. Shanks grins and pulls Luffy in for a farewell hug. You've been through a lot, but I don't want you to go through any more of it alone. Got it? He asks, face buried in Luffy's shoulder. Who says he's going to be alone? Ace snorts, approaching the pair. Shanks pulls away from Luffy and surprises Ace by pulling him into his chest. Thank you for everything, Ace. I couldn't feel more relaxed having you as Luffy's brother. You're his savior, so I expect you'll take good care of him in the future. Ace smirks and steps back. He props his arm up on Luffy's head and leans over. Of course, he's walking and talking treble. If I wasn't around, he'd be a mess. Luffy whines and punches Ace's hip. Dumb Ace, I can beat you up. No, you can't. I'm the bigger brother. That means it's my job to be stronger than you, Ace says with a smirk, still putting his weight on Luffy's head. I'll show you, Luffy yells, about to sock Ace. Shanks laughs at their banter, then turns around with a fond smile. I'm gonna miss you too. See you in the big leagues. The group parties long after Shanks departs. On the edge of the chaos stands Whoop Slap, rubbing his aching forehead with a grimace. Pirates are all the same. He leans on the shiny flagpole next to him. When nobody is looking, he slips a cigarette from his tattered jacket. He holds it over a burning patch of grass until it lights. He puts it in his mouth and then exhales with a heavy sigh. The smoke rises in the moonlight until it circles the new flag waving boldly above him. Whoop Slap hums dazedly. The Whitebeard Jolly Roger suits this town better than I thought. Line here. It is all over Noble News. Their local slave market was completely destroyed, leaving nothing of value left. Apparently the Revolutionary Army is responsible, and the nobles are outraged how they always meddle on their affairs. With their anger focused on the rebels, Foosha is but a faraway thought in their stuck-up minds, soon to be completely forgotten. Garp reads the Hightown newspaper in his office. It had taken a lot to acquire this artifact, but he managed by pulling a few strings. The headline reads, "The Revolutionaries Strike Again." That is really the only thing Garp wants to read in the paper. All of the articles are extremely biased and only talk about the one thing nobles care about themselves. Garp picks up his Den Mushi and dials his son's number. He knows it won't take nearly as long to contact him like before, and is proved right when the receiver is picked up. I take it you've heard. Dragon deadpans. Yes, and thank you for freeing them, Garp says, relief creeping into his voice. Don't thank me for anything. It's your job to make it up to your grandsons. Garp grunts, but smiles, knowing that not all hope is lost. Line here. 3 weeks later, rebuilding the village was a fast process. Everyone helped out with clearing out debris and reconstruction. Even their prized windmills were repaired after they were obliterated by Akainu's attacks. No one has wandered back down to Foosha for any reason whatsoever. The Revolutionary Army did a good job of keeping the nobles away like the plague. But now it is time to leave, after all that they've been through together. The village sheds tears as the pirates they've made friends with board their ship to leave for a very, very long time. The pirates stand at the stern, waving wildly even though they still haven't departed. Down below on the docks stands Whitebeard, Marco and Ace. The village is all clumped together in front of them, with Luffy, Makino and Whoop Slap in front. I know you've definitely heard this a million times these past few weeks, but I thank you for helping us rebuild our village and offering us protection, Whoop Slap says, gesturing to the Whitebeard Jolly Roger. It's nothing, Yoy, Marco says when his captain remains oddly silent. We've come to like this village. It's a nice break from the havoc of the Grand Line. I see, but you are welcome to visit anytime, Whoop Slap exclaims, grinning. Marco smiles back, then nudges his captain. Whitebeard snaps out of the trance he had fallen into and laughs sheepishly. Kururara, of course, he says amusedly, but it falters. Pops, Ace asks. The fire user looks a little distressed, but not just from his captain's weirdness. Is there something on your mind, Yoy? Whitebeard lips stretch into a firm line. His gaze settles across the group until it lands on Luffy, who looks utterly clueless. Brat, are you happy here? Whitebeard asks. Luffy blinks, then shrugs. I mean, yeah, it's fine here. But are you happy? I know you must have gone on quite the adventure to find us. Are you sure you can live without it after such a taste? What are you getting at, Pops? Ace asks, a hopeful gleam in his eye. Whitebeard sighs and stares at Luffy. Luffy feels the gaze pierce through his skin, through his being. He knows exactly what Whitebeard is going to ask, and he knows his answer. Adventure never escapes Monkey D. Luffy. Do you want to become one of my sons, Brad? Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.